confidence to pull it off. Morton calls good game. Unbelievable. Sergio Ramos wins! First ever CRL World Champion! Team Liquid is going to be your champion! Mugi 2021! He's done it! World Champion! The Clash Royale League starts now!
As we enter the dog days of summer, the hottest part of the year, things are only heating up here in Clash Royale League. Hello and welcome. I'm Rich Slayton, joined by Juicy J and Andrew Guy to bring you the August monthly finals. 5 golden tickets already secured, only 2 remaining, and of course, very important spots on our leaderboard. And Andrew, today we have one of our best monthly finals of the year.
We do. We really do. I mean, Mohamed Light is back. We're all excited about that. Let's see if he can do it once again. We got the Night Evolution. Excited to see how that works in, but I want to see how Adriel and Faust do. That's who I've got my eyes on all day today. Guys, right on the bubble. It's a big weekend for those two. Juicy, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I want to see some Clash Royale. We didn't get to see Mohamed Light last month because he forgot to check in. Let's see if he can get a 5th monthly finals in a row because he missed that last one.
Well, we'll see that kicking off here in a few minutes. But first, Andrew, let's lay some foundation. How are things working in this competition?
That's right. Are you on your way to becoming a legend? Path of Legends, are you in the Ultimate Champion? Well, we all are, but you need to get to that top 1,000 to get to our 2-day qualifier. It's a competition where 1,000 people get whittled down just to 8, which is where we are today. And of course, today, just like those qualifiers, is going to be double elimination. Well, obviously, there's the Swiss and all that, but we really care about just today, which is double elimination, dual format. We got a bracket to go through, upper bracket, lower bracket, and it's in-game duels. We've talked about this all year long. Those decks need to be pre-set before you come into that best of 3 match. And of course, you got to make that decision on the fly. And if you don't know what dual mode is, well, that means you have to make unique decks. So that means 32 separate cards to make your 4 decks to get us to where we are today. And Juicy, we have had a handful of people find great success with our in-game dual mode, claiming a handful of golden tickets.
Absolutely. The golden tickets so far, we got Mohamed Light, Pandora, Pedro, Mugi, and Arden Toas. We've seen Mohamed Light win 4 back-to-back monthly finals in a row. Arden Toas, the only person to actually get first place and get those golden tickets. And we're going to look at the leaderboard next. Leaderboard, that's the other way that you guys can qualify for the World Finals. There's going to be 2 people coming in from the leaderboard. Faust, Mortar, those are the people that are up there right now. Faust is actually playing in this month's qualifier, so maybe you can see him clinch enough points to be able to secure that qualification.
He's going to have a hard road for that.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I say he's going to have a hard road for that one today because this is an absolutely stacked final. You look at this leaderboard right now. Faust is here, but so is Samuel Basoto, Adriel, and Ta, who are all trying so hard, Andrew, to grab one of those top 7 spots.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason that I'm so much more interested in what Adriel and Faust have to do is because for some reason in the back of my mind, I feel like Samuel Basoto is already on his way to World Finals, which he is really not. I mean, he has a lot more work to do in the next couple months. And then Ta has been, you know, even in my mind, I almost feel bad that I don't give Ta the credit that they deserve. He's always here. He's won monthly finals before, back, you know, I want to say back in the day. It hasn't been in 2023, but he showed up a lot. So I'm really excited to see what all of these people with their kind of lives on the line are going to bring to the table this weekend.
Well, let's go ahead and take a look at how difficult that journey might be for some of them. Of course, our first round of the day, Mohamed Light, the Pharaoh himself, up against Wallace, who's looking to make his first ever solo World Finals. Of course, the hero for Pain Gaming in 2020 against Nova Esports. Samuel Basoto and Adriel, both very, very close on that leaderboard. You saw them right next to each other. The winner here takes a big leg up in getting a spot towards World Finals. Then one of our other golden ticket winners, that's right, we got two of them here this weekend, up against the very talented Titan, who's been quiet but dangerous all year. And then the match we were just talking about, Faust and Ta. Faust currently our points leader, Ta just outside that top 7, but of course a monthly final winner from our first season of solos, here to put on what hopes to be for him a big time show. Juicy, I'm going to start over here with you. We have 4 phenomenal opening round matchups. Obviously 2 of them are inconsequential for one player, with Mo and Mugi both already having golden tickets, but very important for their opponent. I know this might seem like a pretty easy answer here, but which one of those 2 players, Titan or Wallace, has a harder hill to climb?
You know, it's a solid question. Obviously, Wallace not in the best spot, going to be having to play against Mugi here, but you know, if you're playing against Muhammad Light, that is just not ever a situation you want to be in. I was talking on my stream yesterday, just talking about who's the best player of all time. You know, Muhammad Light is always at the top of that discussion, but you know, Sergio Goblin also had a great run back in the day, but there's never been someone so dominant in the scene where it seems like there's no way to ever beat him. It seems whenever he's in tournament, he always wins.
Hey, Andrew, I've been looking at these predictions here, and you know, we have a nice little split right down the middle where you and I are both taking Adriel, and we have Samuel Basoto for Juicy J, and then you and Juicy both have Faust. I have Ta in this one. These are the 2 kind of open matchups, right? No golden tickets already held in those ones. Which one of those 2 matches are you more pumped about right now?
Yeah, I mean, those are such great matches. Even on the Esports Royale Twitter, there was some polls, and they were really lopsided polls and then very close polls. And it was match 1 and 3 were very lopsided. And then things got a little closer with matches 2 and 4. I mean, honestly, for me, I felt icky picking against Samuel Basoto, but for some reason, my gut just told me to go with Adriel today. He's had a great 2023. Samuel's just one of those guys that he just feels like he's always exactly in the same place. He could always knock you out, or he might not show up that day. Even if he doesn't show up that day, he's still going to be one of the best competitors in that competition. But does he have that edge to bring him to that number 3 world final spot again? And then on the other side of it, Faust and Ta. Faust is in this really unique position of kind of having world finals clinched. And if I'm not on camera, but I'm doing the air quotes clinched just because he has so many points. But both these guys still have so much to prove. I think nerves come into factor a lot in match number 4.
Well, we'll have to get there, of course, later today. We'll see if they're able to calm those nerves as they wait. But we kick things off with our first match of the day. Welcome back, Mohamed Light, after taking a month little break here. Let's see if he can remain perfect throughout all of his monthly finals. So far, 4 for 4, looking to make it 5 for 5 across from him. Of course, Wallace, but you talk about Mohamed Light. Juicy, at this point, I think people are almost watching just to see if he loses.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. I mean, no one's ever done what he's done in all of esports, just so dominant. And I think at that point, I think a lot of people are almost wanting him to lose. Also, talking my stream yesterday, a lot of people are telling me, you know, it just gets boring seeing him win every single time. But for me, you know, I gotta root for him. He's a great guy. And just to see that domination, it's almost inspirational.
Let's go to the other side of things. His opponent, Wallace, looking to make his first ever trip to the World Finals as a solo. But of course, we've seen him in the past. And man, the performance he put up, Andrew, for Pain Gaming in 2020, the 7-win run to carry Pain over Nova Esports, nothing short of legendary.
Yeah, I mean, Wallace has been one of those guys that's been spectacular for years now. And last year in 2022, it felt like he just missed the mark by a hair. And there's obviously more to that story. But the end result of that story is he was not at World Finals. And then you follow up that story with 2023, and he's been pretty quiet on the year, right? Not exactly what you'd expect out of him. Now, is he still one of the best in the world? Absolutely. But he's ranked 34th right now. And so you take out the 5 people that have won, it brings him to the top 20s or the high 20s. That doesn't feel like where you need to be if you want to be a world finalist right now. You know, you talk to guys, all the best players in the world, they say you don't just like start playing ladder one season, and let's say you have the skill. Let's say you have the skill to be the best player in the world, but you've never pushed ladder before. You have to push and get 12th and 9th and 30th and then 6th and then 1st, right? It doesn't just happen in 1 month. And I feel like Wallace, for some reason, he just doesn't have the momentum that we need for him to get there. But there's still time. There's still 2 more golden tickets to give away. And I think right now in August is kind of his last chance to make a last-ditch effort.
Well, you know, you look at the numbers for this competition. Let's talk about some stats for Mo and for Wallace. In 2023, during CRL seasons, Wallace's average Path of Legends finish, 147th. His average Swiss bracket finish, 49th. Right? You talk about 49th, that means you're averaging missing out on that group stage, which is true for the vast majority of people. Mohamed Light's average Path of Legends finish with just his #1 account is 1.5. It's right between 1st and 2nd. Wow. And his average finish on Swiss, maybe even more impressive, is 9th. And then you add, of course, his average finish in group and final is both 1st, obviously, through those 2. But you look at those kind of numbers and the place that Mo's put himself in, Juicy, versus Wallace, the kind of hard-fought ways he's had to get here, the results are pretty much speak for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to go back to the last time we saw him on a monthly finals stage at the end, the interview with Andrew, just talking about, hey guys, I'm just human. You guys can beat me. Just don't be so nervous. And I think that is going to be the key for Wallace today. If he is going to take down the world champ, he needs to realize that, yes, he is beatable. And yes, he can do it. If you have this mindset, I call it the Mohamed Light effect, where you just feel like you have no way to win, then you're not going to do it. You can't break through with that mindset.
So we have a couple minutes, a couple more moments, and really quickly, Juicy, the 3 biggest Evos right now, RG, Knight, and Mortar, actually, and Barbs, all 4 of them. RG is maybe actually 4th on that list. Where are you feeling about the evolutions and where they rank right now before we get into this match where you know they're going to be utilized?
That's a great question. I think that Knight and Barbs may be tied for like 1st, 2nd area. Both very strong. Barbs more used in like beatdown decks, whereas Knight's using quicker cycle decks like Miner or even Hog Rider. And then you have that Mortar RG kind of towards the end of things. Mortar definitely a little bit stronger, probably put it at 3rd. Very solid on defense. It always is solid on defense. Also a great secondary win condition. RG 4th, super solid even without the Evo. Evo just giving it a little bit of a boost there.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see between Knight and Barbs which ones are going to be the most popular. And then Mohamed Light is a huge fan of the Evo Mortar, so you know we're going to see it in this set. Rich, how are you feeling about the Evos right now? It feels like we're kind of found our Evo meta that doesn't feel unbalanced, or as unbalanced as it did in the prior Evo meta, just when Firecracker was breaking and RG was breaking everything.
I think that it's interesting because I think that the challenges of Evos right now are less obvious, right? Firecracker carried what I refer to as an ICBM on her shoulder, and with the overlapping sparkle damage, she would just ruin towers. And same thing with Royal Giant. The offensive firepower of those 2 being taken back a nudge has certainly made it a little bit less obvious. And when I say the word obvious, it's because of how brutally dangerous the Evolved Knight is. The ability for the Evolved Knight to actually penetrate deep, to create single lane, to create opposite lane pressure just by itself and require a massive response, it's still an unbelievably dangerous and powerful card. It's going to be I'm very curious to see how that Knight how the evolution of the Evo Knight takes place over the next couple of months.
And then the craziest thing for me is just that, like, towards the end of the RG meta and this whole meta, it feels like everyone is just celebrating the Barbs. Juicy, why are the Barbs being so abused? There was just a post from Royale AP out of the top 200 people with Knight and with Barb. They both changed. It seems like Barbs, though, are a huge fan favorite out there for the top players in the world. Why are Barbs so dominant?
I think the biggest thing with the Barbs is the fact that it only takes you 1 cycle to get to them, and they're so powerful. They survive Fireball, they do so much damage, they always force out responses. You can just pop them in the opposite lane, and they can almost take a tower and even 3-crown you if you don't respond to it. So I think that's the main reason why they're so strong. I mean, the RG also only takes 1 cycle, but a lot of the time, it's not as prevalent as how kind of dominant the Barbarians can be.
Well, we're taking a minute here to get these players ready to kick things off in our August monthly final. Let's take another look at our bracket and the journey these players have to go on to try to get to a golden ticket and gather up those points. And you know, one of the most fascinating things about this one, we haven't talked about this yet, everybody. Andrew, in our first match on the upper side of our bracket is Mohamed Light. In match 3 on the bottom side is Mugi. It is totally possible, it's maybe even plausible, that we would have a Mohamed Light Mugi grand final, that we will have 2 golden ticket winners in our grand final, and that the third place person could be our golden ticket winner this month.
Yeah, we talked about that a few months back, and I actually think it's one of the coolest things about these monthly finals specifically, where you have 2 golden ticket winners in them, because you know they're going to perform well. You know they're probably going to end up at least one of them in the top 4. So you're really always thinking about that number 2, number 3 spot. Now, yes, you should be thinking about getting number 1. Yes, you should want to beat Mohamed Light, but we've seen him give away a lot of golden tickets this year. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Let the ego go. Let's just try to get to World Finals, where then maybe you have enough time to put things together to beat the GOAT. But yeah, I mean, Mo and Mugi are already they're just cruising on through. They're just trying to get paid. Meanwhile, everyone else here really fighting for that last spot. Third place, golden ticket, not a bad spot to be in.
No, certainly not a bad spot at all. A golden ticket gets you to World Finals, and really, that's pretty much all you care about at this stage. Of course, you have the trip, you have the chance for glory, and also the nice little World Finals payout that you add on to your overall earnings for the season. Juicy, you know, when we look at this entire bracket, and of course we have some dangerous matches in the middle, do you feel like there's more pressure on the players who are kind of on the bubble right now, like Adriel and Sam, who are both in the top 7 but could get leapfrogged, or the guys who are in those chase positions, looking at Wallace, Ta? You see, look at this right now. Titan and Wallace aren't even on this top 8 leaderboard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I definitely think there's a lot more pressure on Titan and Wallace, especially with the players that they're having to play against here in this round 1. And like you said, they're not on this leaderboard. So a golden ticket is the way they make it to the World Finals. They don't have enough points to be able to make it to that top 2 on this leaderboard to advance that way. So they definitely have the pressure. They need to win this next match. I'm gonna let you guys go. Enjoy the cast. I'll talk to y'all after.
Here we go. Wallace, Mohamed Light, the first match of our August monthly final. Golden ticket, money, and of course, World Finals points, all on the line.
Yeah, it's fascinating to just look at even their body languages. Mo kind of sitting back, Wallace leaned forward, Wallace talking a lot to his coaching. Mo just, you know, I mean, he's got money in the bank. He's playing with house money, as we like to say. He's just chilling. He's just chilling. He's just trying to, just about building that legacy now.
Mo playing Zap for what might be the first time in 2023 CRL for him. I don't know if I can't remember if I've seen him play Zap at all this year.
Yeah, Zappa, not a very commonly used spell these days, but as you know, that's what I love about these monthly finals and the changes and all that, is the meta's evolved. They change every single week, and especially in the competitive weekends. So Executioner and Zap to start our Saturday, Rich, and I'm all here for it.
Well, it looks like Wallace might have gotten the pick here, because it might be an Xe deck sniping a lava play here. This is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Xe, you've got the Inferno, you probably have NATO. I wonder if he's going for some sort of just cycle deck. Well, otherwise.
Well, you saw the kind of the little smile on Mo's face when that came out. So here we go, lava opposite lane, Xe back in cycle. This is great for Wallace so far.
And there's the NATO to prevent the death damage, so Wallace going all control in the skies. Mohamed Light going, all right, man, you see me.
I mean, I'm trying to go through what Mo has played this season of CRL, and he's played a little bit of Lava Loon. Didn't play it with Zap, played it with arrows instead, but he definitely has been showing it a bit, and Wallace getting a really solid pick here to open things up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lava deck out there that runs Zap Fireball with Mega Minion. There's also one with Tombstone in there, so maybe Tombstone is Mo's last card, or maybe it's Fireball. And as of right now, those Evoed Barbs putting in some work, man. I mean, death damage is in, Evoed Barb on the tower, and Wallace, even with some good control, taking a lot of damage early on.
Double Xyz down now in the left-hand lane, getting ready for the lava push to keep on coming in. We'll see if at some point Wallace can actually get on offense. So far, it has been all defense all the time as we enter the final 10 seconds or so of regulation play.
Yeah, Mo's doing a really good job of just keeping the pressure up. Wallace is kind of stacking and spending all of his elixir on defense. As you can see there, 2 Xyz down. What does Mo do? He goes Naked Loon opposite lane. And now Wallace has 7 elixir that he can do nothing with on the left-hand side. He's going to NATO to King, and then, yeah, try to support here on the left-hand side.
And here we go.
There we go. GY finally in.
And is he running a spell of some sort? Is there a freeze? There we go. Freeze does come in.
Wow.
That's a lot of damage. Zap to clear, but just like that, Wallace takes the lead in sudden death overtime.
Yeah, I mean, the freeze is absolutely massive here. I mean, Mo's best response is going to be that Bomber way back or Barbs or Skelly Dragons on top, and that's just damage to the free. I mean, that just gives away free damage to the freeze. And there you go. Bomber has to go way back, so freeze goes on top of it. And Wallace is going to take game number 1 here. Beautiful patience. It felt like for a while, like, it was like, well, maybe he's going to cycle him out, and then you see the cards kind of come together in the deck and the way Wallace was playing, and you go, this has to be GY. Rich, you were waiting on the call. Freeze comes down, perfect timing. 2 sends is all Wallace needed to send Mo off on a bad start to his Saturday.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because Mo's been playing a fairly decent bit of Lava Loon this season of CRL, and Wallace has played a decent bit of Graveyard Freeze, a different version of it. He made a great pick, taking the bowler out and putting the Executioner in as well. So in a rare situation, we see Mo and Jebba's getting maybe outpicked, outmatched up by Wallace.
And this is one of Mo's tried and true favorite decks in the game, whether it's Magic Archer, whether it's Spear Goblins. You know he loves that fast cycle. You know he loves those wall breakers. And watching him play this deck with the Evolved Knight is one of the more inspiring or frustrating things to watch, depending on who you're rooting for.
Wallace has played this deck 3 times this season, assuming that this also is the Mother Witch variation, which it most likely is, with a 2-3, 2 wins out of 3 games results. We'll see if he can make it 3 out of 4 here in this very important round 1 matchup.
Yeah, and it's really going to be interesting about Mo and how he wants to defend this deck that he's playing against. You know, pretty sure he's got Poison in there. That's usually the spell that's run with this, since he doesn't have Magic Archer. Oh, no, he does. He has Magic Archer and Spears, so he is going to go with that, and that's exciting, man. I honestly, anytime Mo's playing Magic Archer, I'm always here to see it. He's incredibly aggressive. His NATO lineups are absolutely immaculate, and even right there, he just min-maxing. He goes, all right, I know I'm going to lose this Magic Archer, but I'm going to spend 4 elixir to get 3 shots, 4 shots in. And he just does that to you the entire game. Relentless pressure, and you always have to be looking out for those Magic Archers.
And interesting, the Rage has been kind of making a bit of a comeback as of late. We're seeing a little bit more Rage placed in many different spots, and here we go. This is actually a different variation of Royal Giant that Wallace currently has a 100% win rate with in CRL. We'll see if he can make the comeback. So far, though, so good for Mohamed Light.
Yeah, Mo sees that Rage. He goes, all right, let me start Magic Archers in the back. Shouldn't have to worry too much about big spells, and if I do, we'll get that Bomb Tower plate to the inside so we can't get a Lightning or something like that in, but obviously not as worried about those things. Magic Archer in the back, Wall Breakers on the right-hand side. This is a nice send.
And Magic Archer not going to get the lineup as the Zappies step up, and this is going to be the big question for Wallace. How does he get past Bomb Tower, NATO, Log? And that will be the math he tries to figure out here as a nice miner goes in right to the Mother Witch, away from the Fisherman, or close to the Fisherman, to not get pulled, and boom, we are hitting up 545.
Yeah, that's a big double connection there, and Mohamed Light doing a perfect job of just making sure those evoed RGs are never getting enough shots in to hurt the units supporting it, like the Knight on top. Spear Goblins are deep, late NATOs to pull that RG back. I mean, he just has so many good responses with this deck, and I mean, it's obvious like why he's one of his favorite period to push with on ladder. Is just the control with it. He just knows it in and out, the matchups, everything.
Just about 90 seconds left in sudden death. Wallace now starting to try to get in rhythm here, but he has to defend these miners as well. And as you can see, that miner's going to get a ton of damage as Wallace tries to just go all in on this push on the right-hand side. Evolved Royal Giant picked up by the Bomber, and that should be sufficient for Mohamed Light to take game number 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure he even could have logged there if he really wanted to, but instead opts to take the shot, saves the elixir, gets the log in there for chip damage. Now he's just a couple minor hits and a NATO away, and all things going Mohamed Light's way. I mean, when he plays this deck, it's just so frustrating, because not only do you have to worry about the NATOs and try to predict those magic archers, he's so good at being patient that a lot of times you'll predict too early. And then when you predict too early, you'll see yourself on the next cycle waiting a minute, and then that's when he gets aggressive with that magic archer. So really, really well played there. I mean, he always runs a clinic with that deck, and here we are, game number 3. Wallace feeling the pressure.
Mohamed Light has already played Knight Evo. So now here we go. He does have Graveyard open, Poison is open, and it's very possible that's the direction he's going. Maybe Graveyard Barbs here in game number 3.
I mean, I know he loves that Evo Mortar, and maybe it's just a little too obvious for him to run the kind of the 3 favorites back to back to back. So it looks like he is going to go RG, and I like that, because he's been very vocal about how broken he thinks the Evo Mortar is. And, you know, like you said, Rich, maybe he got caught in game number 1. I'm glad they're changing things up here in game 3.
Well, this pick from Wallace here going bait, and a very fast cycle variation of bait. Interesting pick. And we'll see what he's able to do with it. But, of course, Mohamed Light has been very good with this deck. 100% win rate so far with this variation of Royal Giant.
I'm not the biggest fan of running bait against Mohamed Light. I know that feels like such a weird blanket statement. And obviously, this is a version of bait that I haven't really seen anyone play, period, and especially against Mo. But I just feel like too many things need to come together late game against someone that is so on top of cycle and elixir that it's, I don't know. I mean, maybe the best bait players have something different to say about playing bait against Mo, but it just feels like it's not the best way to go.
First 90 seconds away, and the Monk doing its work against the Dart Goblin. No significant damage either way. And I'm trying to go through the variations. Let's see. I mean, look, Wallace has run this. He has a 50-50 win rate so far this season. Last card should be Rocket here. Running Rocket Cycle and running it into a Monk deck. That's going to be interesting stuff for Wallace.
And, you know, Mo just has so many good ways to get on top of everything. He can early drop goblins. He's got the barrel. He can E-Spirit plus Fish Boy. He doesn't have to worry about pulling anything in. There's so many good ways that you wonder if Wallace is starting to recognize that this game is going to be a lot more about rocket cycling than it is about getting barrels in. But then that also becomes the type of thing, as soon as he starts to rocket cycle, then you know Mo's going to go insanely aggressive. So, I mean, this is one of my favorite things about CR, just trying to figure out the mental gymnastics that Wallace is trying to pull off.
So, Evo Barbs, a response to the Royal Giant, obviously, but the Fireball plus Barb Barrel. I don't think we'll see Mo play Barb Barrel to help with the Barbarians at all, but certainly he can use that as a breakthrough moment if he wants to give and get just a little bit. Tesla stack, and we'll see if Wallace is able to play some Sim City and chunk down these evolved Royal Giants once they come in. And here we go. Now he's trying to get the cycle moving. What we haven't seen yet, Andrew, is Wallace effectively out-cycling that Barb Barrel.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him get close to it. I think that's where last time we saw Mo go E-Spirit and then a late barrel. This time we saw him go Monk and then a late barrel. It's provided Wallace with a couple of good hits there. And there you go, Wallace missing the Tesla. You can see Mo reacting. Snowball has to come down. Skeletons get taken off the board. And this is kind of what I'm talking about, Rich. I know that you're good with this deck, but I just don't know how you're going to trick Mohamed Light into either missing a barrel or letting you build up a push with... I just don't see your way of breaking through here.
Yeah, I mean, this is the hard question, right? Since we're dealing with having pre-built decks, what was Wallace's other option? He knew Fireball was open, right? So he's looking at this and one other deck. He knows Fireball's open, but maybe, it's 50-50 shot whether Mo plays Fireball here, and he ends up running the Barbarian deck, which certainly is going to have some challenges to face against that particular spell as you see them come in right here.
Yeah, Evo Barbs come down, Fireball immediately used on them. That's what Mo's done every single time to the stack of Barbs. Wallace playing them early and high, so he's not giving away any tower damage. Now kind of switching lanes, and again, Mo can just kind of sit back. He's got 1,000 HP lead in both sides, and the only way he takes damage is rocket cycles or one of those barrels connecting. So now he has the luxury of just sitting back, and there you go. Wallace goes, I have to rocket plus barrel. That's a 9 elixir spend, and now I'm really susceptible to an RG at the bridge.
Well, and here's the crazy part, right, is that if Wallace had been able to get that Tesla down a half step early and not take those Royal Giant shots, he might actually have the ability to rocket cycle out and win the game. But the fact that he has to get so much damage so fast because he gave up all that damage just makes that prospect completely impossible. And you see him have to overspend, just as you called it. Mohamed Light, easy does it, takes care of Wallace in round number 1.
Well, we kind of drew it up from the very beginning, and then as we were talking through the match, it was almost like we were talking through Wallace's thought process. I mean, I'm sure his was going a lot more quickly than ours and probably at a higher level, but you and I were both going, how's he going to break through this? What's he going to do? Well, Rich, he's got to outcycle the barrel, right? That's one of your, he's got to use his barrel to outcycle Mo. That was his first thought process, and then he sees that's not really working, so what do? Well, I guess maybe I play defense till we get deeper and double and triple, keep throwing those barrels to keep the barrel out of cycle, and then maybe I can rocket cycle. It was just a really, really tough spot for him to be in, and I think they both kind of knew it early on. I obviously, applaud Wallace for trying everything in his, bag of tricks to try to make something happen, but I think once that barrel cycle kind of got the best of him, because I think that's what happened. I think he was really trying to outcycle with the Goblin barrel, and that's when he was just 1 elixir short for that Tesla to come down.
Yeah, that was just a tough spot, and you think about it too, that when you get to that final game and you're playing against Evolved Royal Giant and you don't have a lot of ways to keep it from getting into its shooting rhythm, right? No log, no NATO. You have no knockback, you have no pullback, and one of the keys to Evolved Royal Giant is don't let it start shooting so you can actually get DPS troops on it. It's just really hard for them to do anything. And then you add the Fireball on top of that for the Barbs, and that's just stuck between a rock, a hard place, and a giant pile of bricks.
And you're playing the best person in the world,
yes.
Right? Not only do you have yourself in a very, very tough spot, matchup-wise, you're playing against the guy that knows these decks in and out and is the best in the world with them. So Mohamed Light does exactly what he does. Wallace starts off very, very strong. He comes out with an Exy deck that puts in some work against that lava. The couple freezes, the late graveyard, the patience. This was all things coming together for Wallace. Really, man, it does seem like Mo has a slight weakness to freeze. I see him lose to it every now and then on stream. Here we go. Wallace takes game number 1. We know the notorious one back in 2021. Let's go to the next deck here. Mohamed Light maybe has a weakness, and maybe it's freeze. Then we go to game number 2. There's different versions of this deck out there. There's goblins with bats and poison, and then there's, of course, Magic Archer with NATO, and Mohamed Light is one of the best in the world, period, with this deck. He's always putting on a clinic with it, and Wallace just was not able to keep up with the cycle. Then, Rich, we go to game number 3, and it's, we talked about it a bit. I'd be curious to see what Juicy has to say about this, but, you said it, man. He's run it a handful of times. He's 50-50 with it. I just don't know if it's the deck you want to run in game 3 against Mo, but as you pointed out, Rich, on broadcast, this is pre-submitted dual mode. Maybe the other option was even worse.
Well, and also you look at the deck that Mo ran in game 2, and that did a great job of covering either Wallace's Royal Giant deck or this bait deck. He had good coverage for both of those. So, you know, gets kind of caught looking in game number 1 with a bad matchup. Then game number 2 picks one where you're looking at the options that are available for Wallace and what he's been running. And I don't know what Wallace's 4th deck was, but you have at least a 2 out of 3 options, a 66% chance of getting a favorable matchup with that pick in game number 2. So really smart pick to go with that in game number 2 and cover very, very well and get himself right back in the mix. Juicy, Andrew set you up with the big question. What do you think about the picks here, especially some of the stuff that got run against Mo there in the end?
Yeah, I mean, like you guys pointed out, I think he started off great with that snipe a little bit, but then he went straight to comfort. And then when you go to comfort, Mo Light, he's able to predict that. Boom. RG down, Wallace not able to break through with that comfort deck. And at that point, I think, like you guys said, his deck pool was in a great spot. He got an okay matchup with that bait deck. I think the biggest thing you guys didn't point out there on that last game was those evil barbs of the bridge on the left-hand side on that Monk Phoenix. That's what really allowed Mo just go opposite lane, hit the fireball in the Tesla, and he didn't have enough elixir, or maybe not the cycle, to get back to another Tesla or barbs to that defense. And at that point, it was over.
Yeah, a little overcommitment there on the side of Wallace. Of course, he is down but not out. We do play double elimination here on our monthly finals, so Mohamed Light will move on where he awaits the winner of our next matchup. More on that banger in just a minute, whereas Wallace will drop down to the lower bracket and now have a much harder journey towards points and maybe a golden ticket as he no longer has that life to give. But again, let's go back to the big next one coming up here. Maybe, I think, the most consequential match of the day. Adriel and Samuel Basoto, both currently in the top 7, both currently in a leaderboard position where if we ended right now, they'd be going to World Finals. But one of them is going to take some very important points right here and put the other one in kind of a precarious position, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting stuff. We got number 10 and number 11, respectively, Samuel Basoto and then Adriel. And we kind of have... I mean, it's weird to call Samuel kind of the old guard at this point, but really he is. He's a seasoned vet. He's one of the most famous players in all of Clash Royale. He had an incredible World Finals last year for a guy that showed up at the beginning, won a golden ticket, and then decided to go vacationing for all the rest of 2022. Shows up in Finland, has great times at night, and then dominates during the day. Samuel Basoto, one of my absolute favorite players in the world. But then on the other side of it, we have Adriel. Rich, this is, and Juicy, this is one of the guys that I think everyone was really, really excited about for 2023. We saw some really exciting stuff from him in 2022 and even in 2021 when he finally was old enough to compete. 2023 feels like where it's everything finally coming together for the young man. The maturity is there, the composure, the poise, the patience, but can he put it together at the highest level against one of the best? That's what I'm still kind of waiting to find out. Does he have what it takes when everything is on the line?
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a great point there. I mean, we talked a lot about who's going to win this matchup. Adriel, like you said, kind of just coming into the scene and kind of doing quite well. I'm very surprised and happy with what I've seen from him overall. And Samuel's kind of the opposite of that. I feel like he's not as consistent. Like Rich said at the beginning of the cast, he's kind of hit or miss with his gameplay.
So Samuel, top of your screen, Adriel at the bottom. Sam going to the skies. Adriel obviously running wall breakers here with a nice early connection, and this is going to be an interesting matchup. Magic Archer and Spear Goblins already out, so Spear Goblins come back around as some good pressure is created on that left-hand side, and that's kind of the name of the game when you're running this deck against a beatdown deck, is just pressure, pressure, pressure. Juicy, this is a really interesting matchup because a lot of players out there would be like, oh, well, it's lava with Fireball plus. You can take care of the Magic Archer. You can take care of the Spear Goblins with the small spell. I've seen a lot of great players play through this, and I've seen a lot of great players struggle with this matchup. Adriel already down a tower. How you feeling about his chances in game 1?
I'm feeling terrible about his chances. He already lost the tower. Huge miss on the wall breaker kite there. Maybe Adriel's gameplay is the one that's hit or miss here with that kite miss. But overall, looking at the matchup, I mean, you hit it. I mean, it's very difficult for Adriel to do anything here. Samuel's going to have that fireball for the Magic Archer, and he's going to have either zap or arrows to kill wall breakers, streak off, stuff like that. And at that point, what else do you have for defense? Fireball's going to drop down right here. And Yeah, that Evo Knight. I mean, the Evo Knight's the one thing that maybe will give him a chance because it does a good job of tanking air units.
Yeah, and this is one of those unique moments where the Evo Knight is so strong that you don't even need to support it. So that 3 elixir push to actually take a tower is something that is a luxury, whereas before the Evo Knight days, usually you have to put in a few elixir behind that Knight. You got to throw some spears, you got to throw a wall breaker, you at least have to throw the miner. But the Evo Knight in and of itself, being able to even this game up just a bit. Arrows finally come out for Samuel, so now Adriel knows, exactly like we said, Juicy. Fireball for that Magic Archer, arrows for everything else. Who's going to win in this 2-tower game?
Magic Archer in the back early. I really like that play. Allows you to cycle back to another Magic Archer soon. Evo Barbs are on the board, though. That's going to kind of apply dual lane pressure and force out this bomb tower. Skelly Drag is in the pocket here, trying to get some damage down in that so the balloon doesn't get kited. Love the pressure in the ops lane from Adriel. Overall, solid defense, but
yeah,
this balloon's coming forward.
Yeah, really, really nice defense. Balloon's still there. Not going to get the death damage, but Lava Hound has a ton of HP. And I'm with you, Juice. I really like that wall breaker pressure. It just feels like too little, too late, too much was done early on. Samuel Basoto going to take game number 1 with relative ease.
Absolutely. I love those barbs plays from him. I think that the barbs in the pocket and the Evo Barbs at the bridge on the other lane is what really allowed the distraction in a way to get that Lava Hound just chipping away that tower all the way down to 0.
Felt like every time that Adriel had an opportunity to make something happen on the opposite side of the board, Samuel was just on top of it with a stack of barbarians. And now Samuel going with a game up to bait in game number 2. I much prefer this situation. I like running it when it's game 2 instead of game 3. I prefer bait when you don't know as many options are out. You know, you just take the information you have from game number 1. And wow, Sam already going to take this tower on the right-hand side. Adriel doing what a lot of lava players do, which is just sack a tower early on. Very curious to see if this pays off because they're even in elixir. Balloon down behind the lava.
This is very like unorthodox Clash Royale gameplay for the Pro League anyways. It's just lobbing back almost first play. We're seeing tower trades. Usually it's all like defensive and smart plays, but this is wild right now. We're going to another 2-tower game already here. But who do you think has a matchup here versus Bait or Lava in a 2-tower game?
I mean, it's really interesting because I'm sure Adriel probably has the same situation of what we just saw, right? Probably arrows and fireball as the 2 cards. And I don't know, bait in 2-tower games becomes really, really tough, but this is a different version of bait. It's a much more aggressive version in terms of having more units on the ground that can create pressure in that Knight plus Rascal's push. Those arrows plus whatever the big spell is going to be really curious. I mean, Sam has good air defenses. He has 4 cards that can put in decent air defense, and I think that's kind of his saving grace. I don't know, Juice. How do you feel about bait versus lava in a 2-tower game?
Yeah, I mean, you make some great call-outs there. I think you're right. I think if he does have like a fireball for his other spell, I think that Adriel definitely should be in a good spot. And the arrows, like you said, just going to come down and kill these rascals. He does have the Dark Goblin, the Goblin Gang, but is it really enough with this huge tanky Lava Hound for that balloon?
Yeah, and you saw there, the Dark Goblin was so late to come down. I think Sam worried about placing it too high up, getting too much spell value, and then obviously just a unit being dropped right on top of it. Adriel coming back into it here in game number 2. Sam, early tower take, but just doesn't have the air defenses he needs.
And here comes those Evo Barbs once again. As you guys probably noticed, a lot of the time with Lava or with Evo Barbs in general, since you only need to place it once to get the Evo, all you got to do is kind of place in the back at the start of the game, and then you can save those Evo Barbs for an important defense later on.
Aggressive push here. It goes Knight plus Goblins, I think, plus Dark Goblin there to try to steal the tower. And we are definitely going to game number 3. Arrows MVP, Juice. Those arrows were everywhere Adriel needed them, and they were just completely shutting down any air defense that Samuel had.
Absolutely, you didn't even have to use that last spell. Those arrows were all he needed there. That was very well played. Very interesting best of 3 so far. We see Lava Hound taking dubs on both sides here. Let's see what happens in this game 3.
Love that 5K Pro gameplay, bro. Good times. Good times there.
Yeah.
Lava in the back, 9 elixir down, opposite lane at the bridge. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, super unorthodox. A lot of time in CRL, you see really super defensive play. You see going to overtime to the last second. Who's going to get the last fireball or poison on the board? But no, Lava back. We see a 3 crown. I mean, this is crazy stuff. No Lava is available here, though, in the remaining of this best of 3. Duels formatting cannot repeat cards. So instead, we're seeing a double Monk here. Maybe even an RG Mirror matchup.
Yeah, feeling like it here early on, and just a little bit of context here on Adriel. Talked about him showing up in late 2021 when he was finally of age. It was round 8 where he ended up showing up in that 4th place spot. And then he took a bit of a quiet little break from CRL, at least at the highest level, then showed up in 2022 in one of our qualifiers, ended up in that 20th place spot at the end of the year. And then, of course, here in 2023 is when he's put a lot more stuff together. He's showed up in 4th place, showed up in 16th place, showed up in 24th place. So really has been his year. Samuel Basoto, obviously, no need. Wow, that is a great lightning by Sam. Monk going to have to come down here last second, getting some good shots in.
Yeah, really solid damage. And that's kind of how RG matchups have developed and quote-unquote evolved ever since the evolution has been added to the game. Whoever plays their RG first is going to get that Evo RG in cycle, and a lot of the time the aggression is going to come on top, especially when you can defend well through that lightning.
RG Evo'd in the back here, which is, I feel like we used to see Evo'd RG's only being played at the bridge last month, but Sam opts to go to the very back here. Maybe a Phoenix. There's his Phoenix on top.
Yeah, I think you made a good call there. Definitely in the back is not as good because, I mean, we can see why it's not as good right here.
Right.
Everything that Adriel is able to stack up is able to defend it fairly well. When you play at the bridge, a lot of the time it's a little bit more of a surprise, and you don't have as much elixir to deal with it or the prep work to be able to kind of get some good defense down.
Yeah, it's crazy the amount of work that needs to be put in on those Royal Giants from where they're dropped at the bridge to right outside striking distance. Those like 4-tile range needs to basically take it down 90% to be healthy, or to be safe, I should say. And here we go, RG at the bridge, Fishboy already down. RG gonna get at least 2 shots in. Doesn't get the third. 1507 now to basically untouched towers on the other side. Juicy looking like you're going to be in a good spot, at least as of right now. Adriel, though, RG, Royal Ghost, excuse me, on the tower as that Monk has its ability popped. And now Royal Giant on top of the tower as well. Going to even things up here.
Double Phoenix on the board on this counter push by Samuel. Lightning's going to clean up both of those. A really good counter push from Adriel. We do see that Samuel is still up in the damage lead. Adriel going to have a bit of a cycle advantage here, potentially, with Evo RG. Looks like Samuel has that as well, though. Fisherman trying to tie things up a little bit. Adriel focusing on that defense. I think the biggest thing that we haven't really talked about here in this matchup is that lightning. Pay attention to how these players use these lightnings, guys, because the lightning is getting so much value almost every time it's placed.
And that's one of the things, I'm so glad you pointed that out, because our producer was just talking about this is the 4th time this month for each of these players to play Lightning, you know, relatively low use rate in terms of all cards in Clash Royale League at the highest level. And Lightning, it's a card that'll do you dirty, but it's one of the best spells in the game when used appropriately. And honestly, after 6 years of playing, I still feel like I'm like a C+, B- player with Lightning.
I really love this Monk ability here, protecting the Phoenix Egg from a Barbarian Barrel, and protecting the Evo RG as well. A great defense from Samuel. Overall, we're heading into triple elixir, 45 seconds left. Samuel's up damage currently. It's gonna take some perfect gameplay if Adriel's gonna make the comeback here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm impressed with that last defense from Sam. It felt like Adriel was just going to get a little bit more out of it. Sam uses the ability outside of range. Lightning comes down at the bridge. Now we're going to see a Monk go in front of this Royal Ghost. Barrel takes the Ghost off the board. Monk ability used last second here. Goblins on top of the Monk. Royal Ghost finally comes in, bringing it down, but not giving him the lead. Remember, Lightning in both hands of the players here with 15 seconds remaining. Samuel looks like he might steal this set.
Monk ability needs to pop here, but he doesn't play it. Monk ability would have got some chip, but it doesn't matter. Double Phoenix, RG, push is coming down the lane. And what do I say? Samuel gonna take this dub here because of the aggression. Over-aggression in this RG mirror matchup is how the game is played. GG's to Sam. Game 3, it's over.
Yeah, you called it. Early on aggression from Samuel there, maybe knowing the matchup just a little bit better than Adriel, or at least knowing it earlier on and then capitalizing. Samuel Basoto gets some good damage in. Evo to RG wasn't really the biggest part of it. It was really just about the lightnings, Juicy. You called it out during the gameplay. The lightnings at the bridge, the lightnings defensively, the lightnings offensively. It was really what separated these two, at least in my book.
Yeah, another good point to look at there, guys, is that neither of these players really ever use their lightning on the tower. Instead, looking for as much value as possible to take as many troops out as you can.
And then you see right there the missed wall breaker's kite from game number 1. Nothing but trouble for Adriel there. And you can see here just kind of adding insult to injury, having a lot of responses, but really it was about having the responses to the air defense for Adriel. Then we head over to game number 3. This was a barn burn. I mean, this is a great one. If you want to know how to play this matchup, if you find yourself being an RG ladder player and you end up struggling every time you are in those mirror matchups, the lightning play here from Samuel and Adriel was definitely something to take note of. And of course, you know, some of the other things that Juicy pointed out, you know, go back and watch it back. Juicy, one of the better RG players. I know that you have kind of shifted over to Electro Giant, even though it's not very strong right now, but also a classic Royal Giant player is Juicy J. Juice, let's talk through these matchups. I know we did it a good amount on broadcast, but just in case you're tuning in right now, let's hear what you have to say.
Like you talked about here, just not a lot of air defense from Adriel's deck. Fireball wiping out the Magic Archer, arrows taking on the Spear Gobs. Evo 9 gives a little bit of counterplay, but that early loss of the tower with the failed wall breakers kite is all it took. Looking at game number 2, I mean, you said he does have a lot of air defense with the Princess, the Rascals, the Dark Gob, and even the Goblin Gang. But with having Fireball, and especially those arrows, you saw a lot of arrows value in that matchup overall, always being able to break through with the Lava Loon.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, you don't really have to pick and choose where you use your spell. You just use whatever spell you want, wherever you want. You're getting a pretty good trade there. Then you go to game number 3, and pretty much a mirror matchup. The only change is the Goblins for that Royal Ghost. I didn't really feel like Cycle was a big part of that conversation. I mean, maybe if you drew it up on paper and looked at the macro and understanding or breakdown of it, maybe that one elixir did matter. But again, that Electro Giant play and the Lightning play and the aggressive Royal Giant play from Samuel Basoto was absolutely perfect. And Adriel still alive, but down 1 life, which means, Juicy, you actually are in lead of our predictions right now. Rich and I both going with Adriel. I even said it this morning. I said I had a sick feeling in my stomach when I picked against Samuel Basoto, but for some reason, I just went with my gut. Well, Rich, here we are.
You know,
wrong once again.
Honestly, in retrospect,
Rich, you're muted.
Oh, I'm muted to
now
you.
Now you're wrong twice.
I'm wrong twice in a row.
The hits keep on coming.
Yeah, you know what? I looking at this one, I had some inside information that I didn't listen to, and I'm really upset about it because one of the knocks on Sam, and you mentioned it earlier, is the practice schedule, right? At World Finals, he certainly spent a lot of time exploring Helsinki, and still ended up performing brilliantly. And his coach, when we reached out to me after a stream a couple days ago, and was just kind of set me straight. He's like, the practice schedule that Sam has been on the last couple of months in the week leading up to CRL play has been tremendous. He is dialing himself in because he knows this is crunch time, and he not only wants to go to Worlds, he wants to go to Worlds and be a championship contender. So we're seeing the results, and I'll tell you right now, I'll say this to everybody, and especially to you two, Samuel Basoto practicing hard is a very frightening thing for everybody in Clash Royale.
I'm not going to lie.
I mean, I think there's a handful of players out there in the world that just because they're practicing a lot doesn't make them that scary. I mean, it makes them a very good player, makes them in the top 10, but you talk about Samuel Basoto when all things are firing, and he's definitely a guy that could dethrone Mohamed Light. And we're going to find that out in match number 7 coming your way later today. As you can see, match number 5, Wallace and Adriel. One of them will be saying goodbye by the end of today, which is definitely sad for Clash Royale fans, but when you have this stacked of a lineup, you're bound to lose some favorites early on. And speaking of favorites, Crap is not here, but he is a Mugi fanboy going into match number 3. Mugi versus Tatone, and then to close out halfway on our day, we have Faust and then Ta. I know you boys are on the cast for this one. This is one of the more, I would say, lopsided matches, at least on the polling. You know, Wallace, it felt like he got done a little dirty on the polls just because he's going up against Mohamed Light. But Mugi versus Datone maybe does feel like the largest gap in our round 1 matches. Rich, any thoughts on that?
Well, you look at two different players. On the side of Mugi, of a former world champion, a person many have said at certain times was best in the world, certainly one of the top all-time ladder players, who is also making his 4th monthly finals appearance on the year. Then you go to the other side of things where Datone Titan has been, this is only his first monthly finals appearance of the year. This was only his 2nd ever time this season making it to the group stage for CRL. So you're talking about two players who are just in different classes. Now, not to take anything away from our top 30 player on the planet, and Datone, he has been phenomenal this year. And you talk about players who are in that next tier of play, he's 100% in the mix. But there are a small handful of players on that S tier list, and Mugi is certainly one of them. This is an uphill battle for him. And Juicy, man, I know you've been in a couple of uphill battles, but how do you, if you're a guy like Datone, prepare for a matchup against a legend like Mugi?
It's very difficult. I think one of the biggest things you have to do is look for those really good matchups. Mugi is kind of known for not getting the greatest matchups, but being so good that he's able to break through and win anyways. If Titan can lock in, get some decent matchups, and just play solid and not make any huge mistakes, it might be possible for him.
Drill, what an interesting pick. Now, this is what Titan ran a lot for ladder in Path of Legends back in June. But Juicy, I am a little bit surprised to see Drill coming out here in this August meta.
Yeah, me too. And already we're seeing the Ghost come down, one of the best counters to Drill. Evo Barbs as well. I think Mugi's looking okay here with the matchup. And if we're looking at Mugi with a great matchup, I think that's a W overall because of just the caliber player that he actually is.
Yeah, bridge spam here for Mugi, it's looking like. So with the recently buffed Battle Ram, right? Battle Ram does get its charge going a little bit more aggressively than before, and we'll see how Mugi puts that to work, of course, with the Evo Barbs backed up by that Heal Spirit.
Really love the use of the double invisibility there with the Ghost and the Archer Queen, allowing those cards to come forward, and the Ghost getting a lot of splash damage there.
Golden Knight Dash trying to fight through all of that, but that's not going to be a great fight. Ewiz comes down trying to stop the bleeding, but that is going to be tower down, and that is bridge spam for you, ladies and gentlemen. You win the bridge fight, you overwhelm at the right moment, and you leave your opponent wondering how in the world you had that much on the board.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what to say here. Titan's just going to give up those Evo Barbs early down, getting to the Evo in cycle, playing them at the bridge there. I mean, Titan just doesn't have the splash damage to deal with it. The Gold Knight was not nearly enough.
Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting, right? Running the Classic Knight alongside, running the Evo Knight alongside the Golden Knight. Juicy, almost feels like they're kind of two cards playing similar roles, and you don't have much diversity.
I mean, that's a great call out. I definitely think that Titan's deck needs a little work there. Absolutely. Not a lot of synergy between those at all.
So here we go. Bridge spam in game number 1 for Mugi. And for those of you who are wondering what is the full deck there, that should be alongside the Battle Ram, Evolved Barbs, Archer Queen, Magic Archer, and the Ghost. There should be a Bandit and Arrows as those final 2 cards.
Hop in the next game. Titan with the Skelly Dragons. Maybe a Lava deck. Mugi with the Phoenix and the Barbell, I would assume probably a Royal Giant. Overall, I would say that Titan definitely has a great matchup here, unless Mugi has a Hunter as well. If he can have the Hunter and Phoenix combo to deal with these air defenses, he'll be fine. But only having Phoenix, if that's his only air defense, is definitely not a situation you want to be in.
And Lava up right in front of the Inferno Dragon, which will more than take care of the Monk. And he does have the Hunter here, Juicy.
That's going to be great for him. That's Hunter is one of the best cards versus Lava Hound. Look as it absolutely decimates here on defense. Now the other question is, does he have a Fireball or does he have a Lightning? If he does not have a Fireball to deal with this, it's going to be costing him a lot of elixir. And there comes the Phoenix, but now this lava, or this balloon in the opposite lane. Oh my god, but he's back to Hunter.
Wow, the cycle management there from Mugi. Nothing short of world champion level skill sets there, Juicy.
Beautiful plays by Mugi there, but Titan did get a balloon hit. Zap coming down this Hunter here to prevent the damage, and Titan will be up in damage overall here on both sides. Mugi surviving the single elixir though. Now that double elixir is coming up in about 15 seconds, that's going to put him in a better spot where you can cycle more defenses and also be able to get a little bit aggressive with the RGs.
Now Lava into the lane that Mugi wants to play as he sets up with a bunch of stuff in the back. Fisherman, I mean, what kind of role does it really play in this matchup for Mugi here, Juicy?
That's a great call out. A lot of the time you would rather have a building to pull these balloons. Look at this balloon coming in hot. But the Fisherman not really getting any value here. The only thing you're really looking for is the potential King Tower activation versus that opposing Miner.
Here we go. Barb split, 2 to the right, 1 to the left. 2 Phoenixes on the board. So the stack able to begin happening for Mugi, but that stack does have to turn into some offense. No Royal Giants played, and we are just 23 seconds away from sudden death overtime. And here we go, behind the front end of the push here.
Really good Barbaro plus E-Spear here to try and keep the Monk alive. It's not going to retarget Miner balloon ops lane. Hunter going to be able to one-shot and two-shot that balloon. Evil Barb.
Wow, wow.
Wait.
And look at that. Titan can't believe it. Mugi just shreds right through that one. A meteor flying right through a stack of pillows, feathers everywhere. And Mugi makes short work of his round 1 opponent.
Yeah, I mean, that was fantastic defense. I mean, like I said at the beginning, you'd think that Lava Hound would be good in higher elixir times with the double and triple elixir. But really, with Lava Hound, you're trying to break through in the single elixir when your opponent doesn't have enough elixir to cycle through their air counters. Once they got to the double elixir, Mugi was able to cycle those hunters out on the Lava Hound and the balloon, two-shotting that balloon, and then that push was perfect. The E-Spear to stop the Inferno Dragon, that ability to tank everything. And the Evil Barb just kind of coming out a little bit late there. But once they did, Fireball immediately. Great plays from Mugi all around.
Game number 1 here, as we talked about it beforehand, just a little bit imbalanced, and this is what bridge spam does to you. Just absolutely overwhelmed. Nothing. No splash damage to deal with the Barbarians, and this was white flag waved. I think we're going to see the NATO. Yep, there you go. And that was it for game number 1. Sure, all the towers go down, but the story of this battle done much, much earlier. And then as we go into game number 2, this Miner Loon push on the left-hand side, Juicy, against so many players and in so many matchups against a Royal Giant deck, that would work. But against Mugi, cycling so well to get those hunters back, just didn't have the juice to get it done.
Yeah, I love that call there. The managing of the cycle to always play your hunter first on defense to be able to cycle to another one. That was perfect. And another great call there with the Miner balloon ops the lane is being maybe a bit of an overcommitment. I feel like if you just focused on the defense, brought those evil barbs down to make sure you survived, and then focused on counter pushing, you would have been a lot better off in that situation.
So here we go, looking at game number 1, and Juicy, I really want your thoughts on this this drill deck, because it's very familiar to a lot of drill decks that exist, but it kind of feels like the Evolved Knight is just shoehorned into this one.
Yeah, a lot of the time you'd rather see like Giant Skeleton or something like that, and if you did have it, I think you'd be a little bit better off versus those evil barbs. It does make a little bit of sense. It is called drill bridge spam for a reason. Maybe with a better matchup, not against evil barbs, you can use that evil knight to be tanking for your big pushes with like Gold Knight NATO, the cannon card, or even tanking for the drill. But in this situation, evil barbs absolutely shutting it down. Barbs one of the best counters to the night.
And of course, Mugi running that with the bridge spam onto our second game, and Lava Loon Miner in the mix and just not quite getting it done. You know, you're in the situation where your best ways to take out a Royal Giant also, you have the Inferno Dragon, but really able to deal with it well was Mugi. And then, of course, the Miner Loon plays, just not able to get past. I think you called it out. You called it out before it even got on the board there, Juicy. The biggest key card to this entire matchup was that Hunter. Yeah,
the Hunter put in the work. Another thing we didn't mention yet is Titan's spells. He's got Arrow Zap. That's not going to do anything versus the Hunter and the Phoenix. You need to have a Fireball, maybe even a Lightning in this Lava Hound deck to be able to break through stuff like that.
Well, that one's in the books. Mugi going ahead and taking the 2-0 victory over Titan. And Andrew, it was a little bit of a harder battle for Mohamed Light against Wallace, but our other golden ticket winner just able to make it look really, really easy.
I will always be happy watching Mugi play Royal Giant. I truly think he's the best Royal Giant player in the world. I've watched him do it in CRL time and time again. It doesn't matter where you are, damage-wise, elixir-wise, the moment that that man builds his calculated, orchestrated push, you better come up with something new, and you better do it really, really quickly. He's done it so many times where it's just, let me figure out exactly what you're doing every single time I defend. Let me figure out all the ways you like to push, all the ways, everything. And then I'm going to just do that one push. I'm going to send in all the things right when they do. The Bar Barrel, the E-Spirit on top, the Monk up front, the reset on the Inferno Dragon, all of it. Brilliant. The double cycle of the Hunter. It's just absolutely just a perfect masterclass of how to play Royal Giant almost every single time. So
I don't know.
That's how I feel about it.
Sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear that right now. I just think that, you know what, that confirmed this. That was the sound of thousands of Firkin fans throwing their phones against the wall when you said someone else was the best Royal Giant player in the world. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that Royal Giant play did here in the bracket. Mugi taking out Titan and will await the winner of Faust and Ta, as Titan will drop down to face the loser of that battle. And Juicy, this is what we were talking about. The likelihood of two golden ticket winners getting into the top three, getting into those final spots. And of course, Mugi will have an interesting matchup here in his match 8. We will talk more about Mohamed Light and Samuel, but Juicy, the two golden ticket winners continuing to show their level.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even realize at the beginning of the cast, but you're absolutely right. If Mohamed Light and Mugi both make it to the finals, the third place is actually going to qualify for the World Finals. I don't think we've ever seen something like that before.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into our final first round matchup, Ta and Faust. And this one is fascinating. You have Ta, who is one spot out of the top 7, who is in 8th over the points leaderboard, and Faust, who currently is in control of that points leaderboard, who might be able to clinch potentially a World Finals berth without a golden ticket based on those points. This is set up to be a big one. And Andrew, you talked about it earlier, kind of feeling bad about maybe not backing up Ta as much. Let's take a look at how these two shook out when they met earlier this season. This is not the first time these two have gone head-to-head, Andrew.
Yeah, Ta's just one of those players out there. I feel like he's never gotten the credit that he might deserve. I mean, no one other than a handful of players in the world know how difficult it is to actually win a CRL monthly final, and he kind of came out of nowhere and did it. And it felt like it was maybe a one-hit wonder situation. Then in 2023, we've started to really see him put it together a little bit more often, a little bit more regularly. We've seen him in these monthly finals more. But then you look at Faust, you know, in that last matchup, it felt like Tatone maybe... You know, Rich, you talked about his placements, right? In comparison to, or you talked about placements earlier in comparison to like the number 1, number 2, 3 players in the world. And when you watched Tatone play that last matchup against Mugi, it just felt like he was not playing at the high CRL level. You have to take everything into account. You can't make small plays like that where you're sending 8 elixir in with a minor loon push and your opponent can defend it with 4 in a hunter, right? You just can't do that kind of stuff. I think Faust has had enough experience at the highest level and had good enough finishes in the monthly finals to where we will not see him make those types of mistakes, even though he's maybe a little more inexperienced than some of the other players in this monthly final.
Well, you know, you talk about the results so far this season for these two. Obviously, Faust has been tremendous, making the final bracket round multiple times. I believe this is his 4th appearance in our monthly finals on the year. An overall game win rate of 66% and match win rate of 73%, whereas Ta has started off slow, didn't make it to the round robin stage the first 3 months, then made it in our 4th season, and now this is his 2nd back-to-back monthly finals appearance with a 130 games won, 66% win rate in games, 74% in matches. Juicy, this one, even though Faust is pretty far ahead on the points, is actually much closer than it may seem.
You know, I was the timing on that fireball on top of that Ice Wizard was absolutely brutal because the barbs recycled in the back right when the fireball came in, and so a NATO had to be spent as well. And now you see the kind of the cascading effect of that. I'd say just missed timing is that now the freeze is already shown this early on. Really kind of unfortunate for Ta.
And there we go. Let's jump into it. And yeah, sorry, I saw the word juicy somewhere, and I was like, wait, why is Andrew talking? That is Andrew Guy, guys.
That is me. We do look similar, Juicy and myself.
Who has better hair? That's the real question.
I'm so glad you said that. Moogie does. I feel like of all the hairs we talk about in CRL, we have not talked about Moogie's perfect hair enough. So Moogie wins the match and the hair conversation.
Royal Giant opposite lane, aggressive directly into the Evoed Barbs. Fireball to make some room, plus the E-Spirit, but no shot given. Ta not letting it happen.
Yeah, I mean, Faust maybe just needing to put in a little bit more there. I mean, he knows what the response is going to be, I feel like, from his opponent. So to go Fireball plus E-Spirit, knowing that's not going to take care of the Evoed Barbs, just a slight miscalculation.
And Ta just continue to set up that bowler in the back here against Faust. And, you know, I picked Ta in this matchup, and I think partially it's that seeing Faust this year, you know, you look at what he's done. He gets to the bracket round so many times. We talk about those averages. Faust's average finish in the monthly final is 6, and that's with making 4 monthly finals, I believe. So you look at it, Faust has done very well up to this point. I don't know if it's some nerves. He did just come off of a win at the BESF Cup playing live on stage. Maybe that will adjust his nerves a bit, but this has been the challenging place for him throughout this season.
I'd have to go back and look at the actual replay here, but I think some of those nerves might be coming through in the form of overspends on defense. I actually don't think that fireball was necessary last time around. I think the E-Spirit was going to put in enough work, and then that meant so that the Baby Dragon could connect on the left-hand side, and then here you see just the perfect overwhelm on the right. It felt like Faust was continuing to overspend defensively, and Ta just did a really great job recognizing you're going to overspend over and over and over, then I'm just going to slowly punish you and then put in these big freezes and graveyards right at the worst moment for you. Faust really playing into his opponent's hand, especially because, again, I go back to the beginning of that game where the mistiming of Ta's cycled barbs made it so that that freeze was coming out. You know, the freeze had to come out defensively early on. I feel like Faust just didn't kind of take that information in, process it, and then figure out how to play through it.
And you know who's watching this matchup very closely right now as we go into game number 2? It's got to be Adriel, who, yeah, exactly, number 6 on the overall points leaderboard, Ta number 8. And Ta would be a win here from Ta would potentially, at least for the moment, put Ta ahead of him on points overall and push Adriel down just a little bit further here. Of course, Air Surfer not here this month, but in that number 7 spot as well.
Yeah, Air Surfer, you're wondering. Yeah, I'm sure he's wondering as well. Will he be going to World Finals? And obviously always a treat to see him there. He's got a little bit more time to do it.
And just gonna go for some easy DPS here is Faust and try to turn this into some sort of counterplay. Gonna have to watch. He probably it looks like he's running the NATO variations, so we'll see how he fares against the Royal Giants, the Evolved Royal Giants later on.
Yeah, and that was a pretty good push, right? I mean, the NATO made it so that a little bit more elixir had to come out on the right-hand side, and while not a lot of damage came in from the Magic Archer because of those high zappies, double wall breaker connection on the left. So now Ta going aggressive here at the bridge. Evoed Knight up high, but that Evoed RG is definitely going to put in some work.
Interesting. I mean, maybe just not able to get back to NATO in time, or just opting not to play the Tornado in that situation. And unfortunate wall breakers happenstance there for Faust, as Ta was more than ready with the Mother Witch. Just opting to save the elixir and try to get the damage on the Evolved Royal Giant was Faust, and don't know if it gave the result he was hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just like game number one, where it feels like some of his interactions are off. And Rich, I do wonder if it is the nerves that we were talking about. I mean, maybe he's feeling the pressure of just wanting to close things out, maybe kind of like locking in his World Finals appearance, right? We saw Morten do that last month on Twitter, you know, essentially just saying excited to go to I think he said 5th World Finals, right? Because he confirmed himself based off of points. I'm sure Faust really wants to do that, and I'm wondering if that's what we're seeing now, is maybe he's got his eyes on the prize a little bit more than his eyes on the elixir / cycle.
Ooh, I mean, that fisherman just kind of in a no man's land here. Didn't activate a king tower against a magic archer, didn't pull the miner, and now Ta opening the door a little bit here for Faust to come back in.
So Faust going with wall breakers in front to distract the Mother Witch, and then a very quick Knight to protect those spear goblins that have been alive for quite some time, really putting in a lot of work. Now going to need a late barrel, or excuse me, a late log, but he has got a big pileup coming his way. And Rich, you might have just evened things up in that predictions board.
Wow.
Ta doing it.
Absolutely. Wow. You see the celebration there from Ta. He knows,
yes.
He knows he crushed that one. And the monthly final woes for Faust continue as he will drop down into the lower bracket.
I mean, you look at the poll, you look at even what we predicted before the match, even here at CRL, out of 3 people, he's got the advantage going against him, and it feels like the way that you see him celebrate right there is a man who is finally getting his dues paid, right? I mean, he feels like he's probably been an underdog over and over and over. Did he really deserve to win that monthly final? Oh, you just got lucky, and then here he goes, putting up against one of the biggest contenders for CRL 2023, and making it look easy is Ta. So, I mean, hats off to you, man, and my apologies for not giving you the love you deserve, because that was a great set.
Well, not only a great set, but just poised, right? Even in the moments where things got a little bit difficult. You know, game number 1, he had that one pretty much in hand most of the way through. But when you get into game number 2 and he had some difficult moments, just really poised, knew the game plan, knew the macro of the match overall, and made really good decisions. I mean, this one was just running a hot knife through butter as he got the Graveyard Freeze play, and Graveyard Freeze has been pretty hot on the day overall. But it was this matchup here, and this, I think, was one of the key moments. You see the log knocking back, and you see Faust make the call here. Look, he's just so low on elixir. He doesn't have enough elixir to NATO, and instead of save a couple more shots, he throws wall breakers to the left on a fool's errand as they are taken care of easily. And this was just Ta capitalizing on every opening that Faust gave him.
I mean, and that's kind of the story of the last 2 matches that we saw, right? And I guess technically, because Ta's won a monthly final, you look at Titone and you look at Faust, and it's the inexperienced players making these big mistakes that at this level are completely unforgiving. Like, you look at the way that Mugi and Ta just capitalized on the mistakes in those last 2, and it's just brutal. So you go to game number 1. I'd love to hear what Juicy has to say about this matchup. He obviously knows him a little bit better than we do, but, you know, you get goblins down early on to try to help clean things up, and then that freeze comes down, and then basically all you have is the E-Spirit and then just dropping units. I'm wondering if maybe there's better defenses that could have happened, and then you could throw an RG in front of it, but there is just so much control on the other side by Ta. So, Juicy, in case you're listening, just something to think about. Let's go on to game number 2, Dex 2. Oh, never mind. We're going to...
Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay, we are. Excuse me. So here we go. Game number 2. And Rich, I think you pointed out really great was just like the false errands that those wall breakers kept going on for Faust. That 2 elixir could have really been saved over and over again to maybe help defensively, and then think more about, I don't know, minor chip or magic archer piercing shots. But either way, he just didn't put himself in a good spot. Yeah,
I mean, look, you find yourself thirsty on elixir against a evolved royal giant, and that desert gets drier and drier very quickly. And we've seen this deck play the blueprint for how to beat royal giant, but you know, there are 2 factors here. You have the fireball in there, obviously, for the magic archer, but then the Mother Witch, which turns some of your offensive pressure into the opposite direction. especially with those wall breakers as well. So Ta, solid play here. Faust, again, you know, I think that it's more likely than not he's going to make World Finals with the position he's in on points going into our last month. It's going to be hard for him to get knocked out of those World Finals berths. But we're seeing him here struggle with the monthly finals. But I want to keep in mind, again, he just had a great performance playing live on stage. And if he does make World Finals, I think we'll see a better Faust than we've seen in his monthly finals so far. But Juicy, at this stage, it seems like the monthly finals continue to be a pretty big problem for our points leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with those last two matchups, you guys are wondering about those. Like, I think those are two matchups where Faust can definitely win those. Like, those are not terrible matchups. So to see him really like struggle there is tough to see. For example, in that first one, if you can just get a King to activation potentially versus that Boulder, it's very difficult to do because of the Tornado. It's definitely possible to win. The Goblin's super good on defense. I think the biggest thing he struggled with was waiting the double elixir. I think you got to be a little bit more aggressive than single elixir, because once you get to the higher elixir modes, then the Graveyard just shifts and wins. In that second one, RG, I feel like, doesn't have the best matchup versus the NATO, the Log, the Bomb Tower, and all that. But Ta just played perfectly, which is why I got to pick him as my prediction for the next match versus Mugi.
Ooh, spicy prediction pick already.
Wow.
Let's go ahead and look at those next matches as we do have our bracket. We are now into the elimination phase of our weekend. Everyone has played their first round. So as we move into the lower bracket, Wallace versus Adriel. Loser will leave town in the bottom two spots. And then Titan versus Faust as well in an elimination match. And then, as you just talked about, we get to the upper side of it. Two insane matchups, Mohamed Light versus Samuel Basoto, and then Mugi versus Ta. And yeah, talking about those predictions, Juicy wasting no time, Andrew, picking Ta against the former world champion, and looks like we don't all agree on that one.
Yeah, I mean, so it looks like we're all going with Faust here, which is understandable. But then you go over to the Samuel Basoto and the Mo Light matchup. Rich, I'm curious there. Why go on Sam?
It's a spicy pick, honestly. It's
that, yeah, you're just trying to get that predictions lead.
I want to get the lead, but also thinking about Sam, how good he's been when not trying his hardest in the past, and thinking about Sam really grinding and trying to work. You know, if you'd asked me a month ago, Sam versus Mo, I would have called that an 80-20 just on paper. But now if Sam, I'm still saying that I think Mo might be the favorite, but Sam now, like, I think of him as a 70-30, maybe even 60-40 against Mohamed Light, which is way better than Mo's normal win rate of 80+%. And it just feels like Sam might have it dialed. And the other thing, too, is Mohamed Light has been losing matches in the Queso Cup Teams Edition. He's been losing matches in GKR. He has been losing outside of CRL, and EVOs seem to have maybe cracked the shell a bit. And this just feels like it might be the time for a top-tier player to take a top-tier win over our top guy.
So, and it also looks like both you guys decided to go with Adriel over Wallace in our next matchup. Juicy, you're going to be on the cast, so I'm going to get to you in just 1 second. Rich, we're about to say goodbye to you. So you tell me before we do, why are you still going with Adriel? It felt like his opening set was, left a good amount to be desired when he played against Samwell.
It's the consistency of Adriel overall this season. Look, I mean, he had a rough outing against Sam. He honestly hasn't faced that many people this year who are, I mean, he's faced a lot of people who are that caliber, but you face a player in that S-tier category a few times a season. I think that Wallace wears his heart on his sleeve a bit more, and I think Adriel's a bit colder-hearted, so I think that that's going to carry Adriel in this matchup.
All right, Juicy, you and me got this cast here. Wallace, top of your screen, Adriel at the bottom. Now, as we're starting this off, why are you going with Adriel over Wallace?
I mean, it's definitely a fairly even matchup, but Adriel just been so consistent this season in CRL, accumulating so many points. Wallace, I feel like just not having that consistency and not playing just quite as well. So that's why I got to go for Adriel here.
And a really nice timing there on that heal spirit. NATO going to do enough to take care of the magic archer there from Wallace. And the reason that I went with Wallace is because I was pretty happy with what I thought he did in that very first set against Mohamed Light. It obviously didn't go the way that he wanted, but it was a very, very close matchup. And I feel like if you can get that close against Mo. It's not as demoralizing to lose as it might be to lose against other players. So hopefully Wallace is able to ride the high of losing 2-1 against Mohamed Light to carry it into this matchup.
Yeah, that makes sense. We are heading into this match. Bandit with a huge connection on the right already.
Yeah.
Wallace maybe trying to save up some elixirs to make a counter push here with those Barbarians out of cycle. Barbarians, the best counter to the Graveyard. But look at that, Gold Knight just goes down. Maybe he should have popped the ability there.
Yeah, I would like to see the ability popped, and I understand he's taking damage in both lanes, but with bridge spam, that can really be a problem. And I guess I understand what Wallace is doing, right? He goes, I can take a lot of damage here in single elixir, but once we get to double and triple, that's when I can start to really control the game, get these graveyards in. And Adriel doesn't have any direct tower damage, right? Like very, very minimal. The Magic Archer is going to need to connect, but in terms of actually late game tower damage, I think that's where Wallace is going, all right, I can opt to take a little bit more here early on. Great freeze there as one Evoed Barb gets on top of the AQ for a second. Nice pushback there with the Battle Ram to stop this push on the Vine.
Yeah, that's a great call there. That Battle Ram is what saved that defense. Freeze, one of the best counters to Archer Queen, preventing her from going invisible and getting that ability down. But with the protection, to be able to save the Queen by the time that Freeze runs out to get that ability for the defense, that was just perfect.
Maybe a King Tower activation here. There it is on top of that Royal Ghost as a nice push is coming down this right-hand side. Baby Dragon should get 2 shots in. No, just 1. And Bowler gets surrounded once again by the Evoed Barbs.
Evoed Barbs on the counter push, double Dragons on the defense. Archer Queen up high, not gonna be able to snipe that. So maybe a Freeze will drop down on her. Nope, just Barbs at the bridge. Ability's gonna pop. And actually locked on that Baby Dragon? No, it didn't. A little confused there. I'm not sure how the Baby Dragon took so much damage. But here comes this Graveyard and this counter push.
And Inferno still behind, not across the bridge, but very, very healthy here as a Magic Archer behind King Tower does some really nice cleanup. But there we go. Baby Dragon, the same one you were just talking about, Juice, back on top of the tower, 1272 to 1812. And I think the exact plan that Wallace had, that was a great last-second freeze there, trying to steal that tower, steal this game. The plan Wallace had to take damage in single and catch up in double and triple is really working out.
I really don't like that tornado there. You can even see Wallace shake his head a little bit, wondering about that play. Ghost Ops lane is going to get picked up by the Golden Knight. Bowler gets 1 shot on this Archer Queen. Freeze not back in cycle, so Wallace having to reset here with the Bowler in the back.
And I love that aggressive Royal Ghost at the bridge the moment that the NATO is played, ineffectively, because now that creates enough pressure to bait the Golden Knight out, and now that push on the right-hand side that you really want if you're Wallace, that big beat down 12 elixir push gets kind of broken up a little bit.
Here comes the Graveyard. We're heading into triple elixir as well. Barbs on the defense. Are we going to see a freeze drop? Battle Ram going to tank here, but the Baby Dragon is locked in the barbs a little bit. Freeze drops, arrows drop, Baby Dragon retargets. Overall decent defense, but Wallace in the damage lead now.
Bowler going to connect? It does, 708. That is a huge first Bowler shot. Now up by 500 is Wallace and has the luxury of just playing into this lane. Late Barbs to surround the Royal Ghost and get on top of that Battle Ram. And just as quickly as this game started in favor of Adriel, Wallace is going to slowly close things out. The freeze play, the NATO's beautiful stuff here. Love to see it.
Perfect gameplay there. I mean, we talked about it before with this deck. You do not want to wait until triple elixir with this deck. Adriel has to try and find a way to get damage or even a tower in single or double elixir. Once they triple elixir, the Barbs are always going to drop on defense. The Bowler, the double Dragon, Graveyard NATO freeze pushes are unstoppable.
Yeah, and the patience from the freezes on Wallace, I feel like they would come down at the last possible seconds when just maybe 3 or 4 or 5 skeletons were still alive. All the defenses were played by Adriel. It would pile up just a few hundred extra HPs worth of damage. So here we go. Game number 2. Wallace up 1. Wall breaker connection. Double wall breaker connection to start here. And Wallace gonna maybe turn it right into a Royal Giant push. We'll see.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. He goes for the Phoenix at the bridge. Are we going to see the RG? There it is. Bats on defense. So not going to have Tornado with this variation. Bomb Tower going to get reflected and killing one of the Spear Gobs there with that Monk ability. That was perfect. Is it enough to break through? All going to drop through. Phoenix trying to kill these Spear Goblins.
Was the Phoenix tanking for the Royal Giant?
And the respawn. I'm not sure about that. All I know is this RG absolutely decimated that tower.
Yeah, I was like trying to figure out.
We'll have to see a replay on that.
Oh, yeah. So I'm looking at the replay, and the Phoenix is actually taking for the Royal Giant because the Monk's ability was active still.
Oh.
The Royal Giant was shooting at the bomb tower. Because I was like, the Phoenix is taking damage, but so is the Royal Giant. But anyway, Royal Giant gets a lot of damage in. Adriel goes opposite lane here. And Wallace, I was going to say, I bet he just eats it. And he absolutely does. Tries to just stay on offense here, and Adriel has to course correct.
And here comes the Evo RG. Evo Knight is in the defense, but this Monk ability is going to deflect all of the Spear Goblin hits. Law going to drop through at the last second. Here comes the E-Spear after, and that's RG is going to take this tower down, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow, RG dominating here in game number 2. I see Adil Nassar in the chat going, RG is broken. Well, it seems like it got a little more balanced, but Adriel feeling like it's broken right now.
Here comes the Bass of the Brick.
No elixir in the tank, though, Juice.
Maybe you can take this tower. Here comes the Wall Breakers as well. Is this a comeback right now? This Evo Knight is showing us why he is the best evolution currently in the game. But the Barbaro does come down, preventing one of those Wall Breakers from connecting. And the Fisherman as well. Poison going to drop. Overall, pretty solid defense from Wallace. Great offensive pressure from Adriel. He's going to need a couple more minor poison to take this tower, and he only has 30 seconds to do it.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot because Wallace, if he wants to defend, he can't offend the way that he wants to, and you know he needs to. That's a pretty perfect E-Spirit, but Knight is on the tower. All that elixir spent. Wall breakers were just a little bit too much. Can Wallace turn this into a Royal Giant push?
I love the Spear Gobs here to kite this back, but Wallace knows. So he's just going for the RG in the pocket now. Goblins as well. And look at Adriel's elixir bar, ladies and gentlemen. That is just
And then you see the E-Spirit behind to get on top of those bats, so bats have to be played late. Phoenix on top of the tower, Royal Giant on top of the tower. 5:01 remains, and as quickly as Adriel was able to kind of come back into this one, Wallace is going to close things out.
Buried tower
connect.
Trying to defend. Wall breakers do connect. Wait, that's a good defense. If Adriel comes back and wins this, that would be ridiculous.
This would legitimately be one of the greatest comebacks in CRL history if he's able to steal this game. 5:01, 1484. Wall breakers in the pocket. Barrel misses both of them. I mean, misses one of them, but they both connect. 455. Miners there in the back. Royal Giant in the pocket. Oh my good lord. Adriel is going to take this game.
He just focused on the defense. Wallace shaking his head a little bit. Adriel with the poison. That's going to be game, ladies and gentlemen. The comeback of a century. Are you kidding me?
That was unbelievable. And now you have to take into effect the momentum. You saw Adriel smiling. You saw the look in Wallace's eyes. You know he dropped that game. He threw that game. And now we are on to a very important game number 3. Remember, one of these guys gets eliminated. The other one is on their way to another golden ticket given away this year. Huge game number 3 coming your way.
All I can say after watching that is Rich was right. Adriel, emotionless. He's just focused. He doesn't care what's happening in the match. He does what he needs to do to come back. And that Evo Knight played a huge part in that. The Evo Knight tanking for the miners and getting really solid damage on both of those towers there. That was the key on both of the tower takes there from Adriel.
The chat absolutely losing their minds for the final moments of that game number 2. The greatest comeback that I can think of in a long time in CRL history. Adriel down a tower with a cycle deck, with wall breakers. Wallace just can't figure out how to fix and course correct in time. And now Wallace is very tilted. You see that, Juice? Yeah. The shake of the head, the early skeleton barrel comes out. Yes, he gets a couple shots out of it, but he could have gotten a good amount of damage instead. And Wallace needs to calm things down now.
Interesting play here by Adriel. He was trying to predict his skeleton army there with that earthquake. That's why he played it a little bit more towards the middle, though. But now look at the elixir bar here. Adriel going to be down a little bit of elixir, and Wallace up damage. Great play by Wallace there with the mortar.
So it took us a while to get here, but now Evo and Mortar going in both directions. 2 very different looks. 2 of the most popular looks in the game.
Augie Q on one side. You have the Skelly King Goblin Gang with the bait from Wallace here. Overall, looking at the matchup, I would say, you know, Adriel usually would have a decent way of winning this, but having the snowball instead of the log here is definitely going to be a huge kind of misstep. You need the log for those Dark Goblins. the Dark Goblin is going to get a lot of value overall in this matchup just because when you're on offense, how are you supposed to kill it? You have to go EQ and Snowball, but you need to save those EQs for the mortars.
Yeah, and then you have then with all of that said and done, you still have to worry about the Skeleton King plus that Skeleton Barrel. So
yeah,
Wallace has a lot of options, but as we saw in game number 2, Adriel able to improvise on the fly. And there's that Dark Goblin putting in work. Still one of my favorite cards in the game. And I mean, when you have no way to get on top of it, it's devastating. But that Evo and Mortar snipes it off the board.
Yeah, like you said, Adriel just kind of, what's the word? He's adapting. Adapting is the word I'm looking for. Adapting to the situation here. Using the Evo Mortar on defense, knowing that Wallace doesn't have a big spell. This Mortar is getting a lot of defensive value and dealing with those Dark Goblins, dealing with those spams where he is missing that log.
So Evo Mortar putting in some good work here. As Hog Rider tries to make it to the tower, though, Dark Goblin going to put in all the damage it needs. And once again, sniped off the board by the Mortar.
Really well played from Adriel. The problem is, how does he get damage? Currently, he doesn't need to, though, because he is up.
So Skeleton King ability allows the Skeleton Dragon to get on tower. Musketeer does take it off the board. 2086 now the lowest tower to 2358.
Spear Goblin's gonna come
those Spear
through.
Goblins going to get tanked for a little bit.
Yeah, getting a lot of damage here. We're heading pretty close to double elixir overtime. And like you said, no log equals lots of Skelly Barrel damage, lots of Skelly King damage there. And now we're just not in a great situation overall. And it looks like he does have a big spell. He has the Fireball. That's going to deal with the Musketeer. I mean, this is definitely not the matchup situation you want from Adriel. And you can see it. He's struggling to find a way to break through. He's struggling to defend. He needs to, I don't know, he needs another miracle like last game if he wants to win this game.
Yeah, I've played this matchup a good amount with this Mortar deck, and it's just gotten to that spot to where you can just keep kind of controlling the board on both sides because you have so many good ways to defend that hog that the most that's going to happen is one Hog Rider hit's going to come in because your opponent spent like 8-9 elixir, and then you have a huge counter push. And that's exactly what you're seeing is that cannon cart connects on the left-hand side because the overwhelm is happening on the right. There's just not enough splash and juice from the opening moments. You were talking about how that log, how badly Adriel needs that log in this matchup.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot in tournaments and stuff, but when you guys are making your dual decks, I feel as though when you're doing a Hog EQ deck, you need to have that log in it. Because without the log, and only Earthquake has the big spell, it's really hard to deal with those glass cannons like the Cannon Cart, Musketeer, even the Dark Goblin in this situation. If you don't have the log as that spell that does more damage than all the other small spells, it's just a really tough situation to be in.
So Wallace giving us a look of relief, I think, more than anything. I mean, yes, it was a smile, but I think he was relieved after that game number 2. That is one of those, I don't want to say like career tilting moments that could just be like from that moment on, Wallace was never the same. But had he lost this set after that game 2 turnaround, who knows what Wallace would have been like in 2023, 2024. But he was able to do it. He was able to come back. A crazy game number 2. One of the best we've seen in a long time from Adriel. But Wallace making it happen there in game number 3. Calm, collected. He knew the matchup. He knew that he could overwhelm late. Juicy, what an exciting set for us.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw game number 1 here. That Graveyard Freeze, the Boulder lineups that you mentioned there. They put in the work. Game number 2. Or no, so we're going straight to game number 3 here. We all remember game number 2. That was insane. But, you know, game number 3, like you said, I thought Wallace would be a little bit more tilted, but he actually stayed pretty calm and collected, got a good matchup, and just played perfect. Got the W.
Yeah, that good matchup, just having the ability to control the hogs, and if he was able to, or if he were to take a hog hit, it was because he would get more units down on the board. Early on in that matchup, we did see a couple of tilt plays from Wallace, you know, the early barrel. I think there was something else that happened. Maybe he missed, can't remember exactly what it was, but it just felt like he was a little tilted, understandably so, but Wallace doing and showing his experience by kind of recollecting himself and closing things out there. Game number 1, we talked about it. It was a great time. Good fun, right? Love that bridge spam, but Wallace goes, okay, you can give me damage early on in single. I'm going to take it in double and in triple. That freeze timing was absolutely perfect. Game number 2. This is one for you guys to go back and watch on replay. Absolutely incredible stuff from Adriel, who looked like he was down and out early on, and then closes things out with a 2-tower win. Going on to game number 3, what you guys just saw, Wallace got a lot of bait on the board. Adriel really wishing that snowball was a log, used it earlier on, and Wallace closing out this set. Adriel is our first player to go home here this weekend in August, so while he's got a lot of points, just not able to put things together here when it matters most, and Wallace still hanging on to a dream of that CRL 2023 World Finals. Rich, I know that you were pulling for Adriel, and I know that he gave you a lot of things to get excited about in game number 2. How'd you feel about that set?
It did feel like there were some missteps, obviously, a little bit of unsure footing, which I was a bit surprised about coming out of Adriel, but really more importantly, it was Wallace. Wallace just being kind of gritty. And if there's one thing that I think that exemplifies Wallace as a player overall, it is that grit. It is that his ability to muscle through even when he's starting to feel the pressure. A lot of players are talking about not feeling pressure, being ice cold, whereas I think Wallace is a person who feels it tremendously and feels those moments. Like I said, wears his heart on his sleeve, but we really saw him doing a great job of controlling that here and taking control of the match overall.
Yeah, let's take a look here at our bracket to catch people up on the day. We're almost through the day. Honestly, we got a few more matches, some really, really exciting matches, but one more down here in the lower bracket. Tone and Faust. We got to say goodbye to one more player before we go back up to the top. Mo Light and Samuel Basoto waiting on deck, and of course, Mugi and Ta in the wings. I believe I'm off for this next one, but Tone and Faust, it felt like both of these guys were just, I don't know, maybe just a little off kilter today. I don't know if it's the nerves, I don't know if it's early, I don't know if it's late, whatever it is, it just felt like these two guys were not kind of firing on all cylinders. Tatone's set was the fastest of the day, but Faust not really living up to the points, at least, record that he has at the time. Gentlemen, Juicy, how are you feeling about this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely one of the closer matchups of the day. I did pick Faust because he is very consistent overall. Like you said, really high up on that points leaderboard. On the other hand, you have Ta, who, lost versus, or sorry, not Ta. We have Titan, who actually lost versus Mugi. And, that's a matchup where, he wasn't really expected to win. So maybe he's going to have a little bit of better mindset like going into this match.
And take a look, Titan definitely feeling like he saw a big breath as we jumped into the matchup. Definitely feeling the pressure here. But you talk about pressure, talk about consistency there, Juicy. One piece of the consistency of Faust is he has been consistent in going out in the first round of our monthly finals. In his 3 appearances, twice he has gone out without a win, and once he has made it to the top 3. So I think he breaks that here and gets past Titan in this matchup. But, again, the history has shown that this stage in the competition has not been friendly to him.
Yeah, that's a good call out, and I think you're right. I definitely think this is a situation where he can do it, especially with the matchup that he has here. Poison going to get a lot of value overall versus stuff like the Mother Witch, the Tombstone, even the Skelly King abilities and those big pushes with the RG deck. And overall, Titan, the way he needs to break through is with that Mother Witch. Faust has a lot of cards that could be potential Mother Witch value, like the Wall Breakers, and then usually it's like Spear Gobs or Bats. Looks like Faust actually is the Musketeer version here, which might be a huge game changer this matchup, because if you notice Titan's small is the Barb Barrel. So Fireball Barb Barrel not gonna be able to kill those Musketeers on the offense. Musketeer should get a lot of defensive value here.
Yeah, Musketeer, we've seen a little bit of her today. Obviously not as popular as she was in her heyday. But, you see Faust running Muskie in this minor Wall Breakers deck rather than running the Magic Archer. Do you think that's more of a matchup call here, that he likes the Musketeer for what he thought he'd face against Titan, as we're seeing the matchup work out that way? Or do you think it's because he wants the Magic Archer somewhere else in his deck pool?
That's a good call out. Maybe he is saving that Magic Archer for a drill deck later on. But like you said, it definitely could be the other way around, where it's just he's got this Musketeer. because he knows that his opponent is using a fireball deck without something like a log or a zap that's going to be able to reach it on his side of the map.
Faust has been playing a lot of that bridge spam, that new variation of bridge spam with Magic Archer in there, so we'll see if that's possibly something he has up his sleeve for a later.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Here comes the Miner. Poison going to drop it. Gets some pretty solid value. Interesting idea by Faust to go same lane as his opponent here. Maybe it'll work out if these poisons can get a lot of value. He does not have a champion though. That's one thing we really haven't talked about at all today. The fact that a lot of the time these players are using the Evo Knights and the evolutions over the champions, so that 3-card cycle not going to be as prevalent.
And this evolved Royal Giant gets absolutely shredded on the left-hand side. Got some damage down on it high, knocked it back. Faust doing a great job using that log and not having the tornado in this deck to pull back the Royal Giant. So far, so good, although as we go into sudden death overtime, the lead for Faust right now, just about 200, and we'll add the log on there on top of that, 240, now almost 300 HP.
RG in the back. Titan needs to get back to that Evo RG, make a dual lane pressure. Whenever you're going against a deck that's cheaper than yours, you want to play your RG deck like a beatdown deck, going for that dual lane pressure. Really good fisherman here. Going to pull this over, but look at that poison. Like I talked at the beginning, that poison value overall going to get very good value. But here comes that Evo RG in the right.
Musketeer takes care of the left-hand side. Right, though, is the problem. Log needs to be back in cycle here for Faust. Muskie, and, you know, you talk about this matchup. We looked at the Musketeer and how hard it is to get to for Titan, but also look at how much work the Musketeer does. The big dangerous thing about the Royal Giant is that once it starts getting into that shooting phase, and you see the fireball not taking the Muskie off, all the damage you put directly on it gets knocked back. Musketeer shoots from a distance, doesn't have that problem.
Absolutely. Look at this counter push as well. That Evo Knight just tanking for that Miner almost indefinitely. And I think that's another thing that we've seen Faust do really well in this match.
Oof.
He's always playing those Evo Knights. He's playing those Knight all the time. And it seems like he's always got the evolved version back in hand.
And look at the brilliant protection of the Musketeer on the right-hand side that we just saw. Pull that one for replays if we can. The Miner comes out, keeps the Muskie on the board. Very nice work, but now comes the big test. 15 seconds left. You have the lead, but you have got to stop this evolved Royal Giant. Fireball doesn't get to the Musketeer. Log to knock the Royal Giant back. RG gets stopped by the the bomb tower, and that is a brilliant game number one. Solid deck pick and great play out of our points leader.
Absolutely, and you called it. That Musketeer being out of range of that Evo RG knockback area was the MVP defensively here, just putting in so much work, so much DPS out of that card.
So let's see if Faust does go to bridge spam here in game number 2. Fireball out does give that Magic Archer a little bit more value, plus the barbs as well, and almost assuredly, that's the pick that we're going to see here out of Faust in game 2.
Here comes the battle run at the bridge with the Ghost in the opposite lane. Bomb Tower on the defense. Titan maybe taking a bit of a page out of his opponent's book here, going for the minor wall breakers with that Bomb Tower. Overall, would say that Titan has a bit of a damage, or not damage lead, but a matchup advantage here, just because that Bomb Tower is so solid on defense. Very difficult to break through on Faust's side of the board here.
Yeah, only spell for Faust is going to be those arrows. We'll see if he can find a good chance to overwhelm. The other thing about this deck from Titan is Faust's deck is built to win bridge fights, and Titan's deck really isn't about bridge fights.
Yeah, that's a good call. It's a very cheap cycle deck that's more focused on little tiny pushes here and there on both sides of the map. He doesn't need to win that bridge fight because he can always defend on his side of the map with a Knight or even a Bomb Tower with some cycle cards.
And you see the stat there, 8-0 with wall breakers this season is Titan, so certainly comfortable with this deck. We'll see how much he's played this matchup, but again, the Poison Bomb Tower log all together going to make it very hard for this deck that doesn't really get much in the way of direct damage to actually get on tower here.
You talked about Faust's only spell being the arrows here, and the arrows will get decent value versus stuff like wall breakers, bats, etc. But like you said, Titan having that Poison Log, one of the only spell combinations in Clash Royale that actually fully killed Archer Queen. Speaking of Archer Queen here, I want to point out the fact that Faust did not use the ability here just because that's how strong the Evo Knight is. The Evo Knight damage reduction means that ability would simply be a waste of 1 elixir.
I thought he was going to wait until the Knight got to her and then pop it, but then again, she goes invisible, the Knight starts moving, so you don't get that much out of it. It'll be an interesting interplay to see come from Faust as time goes on.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like one of the main reasons why the Archer Queen is really fallen off as champions go. Mighty Miner, Monk, even Skelly King, definitely a little bit better than her in the current meta.
And you see that Faust has also been perfect this season with this deck, so somebody is going to walk away with their perfect deck, bust it up a little bit after this matchup. So far, it feels like that's going to be Faust, but now he has a big downhill push. Is the bomb tower? No, not enough elixir for the bomb tower. Heal Spirit in, Bandit on the right, Barbs on the left. Chaos, ladies and gentlemen, as Faust has blown this one wide open as we go to sudden death.
Wow, what an absolutely disgusting push by Faust, that dual lane pressure. I think the biggest mishap there from Titan is just not using the bomb tower. For some reason, he did not use the bomb tower on the defense there. He needs the bomb tower for that splash damage and just to bring everything in the middle of the map to get both of his towers involved and working together.
I think Faust recognized how overextended Titan was, not enough elixir for it. And you see Faust there opting to defend with the barbs and then set up his first arrows. Does have to defend a lot here on the right-hand side. Evo barbs come down. They will give up wall breakers here, but then the damage on the left-hand side as well. Lead extending for Faust, and that barb might be enough to do it. Arrows will finish this one off. Faust just needs to hold on for 1 second.
Good game. I mean, I don't even know what I would just watch. That was so ridiculous. That split lane push, the Evo bar split, applied so much pressure, and then he just added on with the Battle Ram, the Heal Spirit on the left, the Ghost on the right, and that Heal Spirit as well at the very end, just barely connecting. The log did not come out in time, and we got Faust laughing a little bit here. Very, very happy with himself in that game too.
Well, he knows every point counts right now, and staying alive, making the monthly final gets you 30 points. Winning that first matchup gets you another 10 points on top of that. So happy about that one. I'm certainly probably happy to break some of the curse that he's felt in these monthly finals, going out in the first round, the first 2 appearances in a row. So a great performance from him. And of course, the gameplay here in game number 2. I love it when you say it, because you say it just about every single month here, Juicy. Disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other word for me to describe that split lane pressure. That was just crazy. In this game 1, though, we just saw a very consistent gameplay from Faust. Overall, just perfect defense and converting with slow chip damage. In game 2 is the exact opposite. Dual lane pressure, that Heal Spirit connected, hit and healed everything on the left-hand side. And the Evo Barbs, the Bandit on both situations are just putting in so much work, and arrows doing enough damage to finish it off.
And those first arrows on the Bandit push on the right would have been enough to end the game if they had been a split second later and taken all 5 of the bats off rather than 2. So the staggered bats drop avoids some of the arrows and extends the game, but doesn't extend it far enough. Titan will have to hope for a phenomenal month 7 if he's going to have any chance of making World Finals, but Faust, one big step closer.
We look at this game 1 deck. We've talked about it a lot. You know, the Minor Poison definitely just having a solid matchup here. Looking at this game 2, like I said, I definitely think Titan should win this matchup. I played this matchup myself on ladder. If you play perfect, there's no reason to lose this. This is one situation where I wish we had the stats on the amount of times each card has been played, because I just feel like Titan did not play that bomb tower enough on defense. For some reason, he just thought it was better to use his cycle cards to defend, but that bomb tower is 100% necessary to be able to defend those Evo Barbs. If you do not have the splash damage for those Evo Barbs, you are not going to be able to make it through.
Well, Faust getting through, and I think that was the pretty consistent pick. Great work for Faust, and we'll take a look at our bracket here in a couple of minutes. But right now, let's bring back Andrew Guy. Andrew, Faust just absolutely dominant in that matchup, getting a little tricky, a little dexmanship, if you will, in this elimination match.
I love that that word is still alive after all these years. Yeah, that was really great stuff. I mean, that Magic Archer at the bridge was like right at the center of the river, excuse me, not at the bridge, was really causing a lot of problems for Tatone throughout that entire matchup. And then the very end, or it was the beginning of the end, that disgusting push to use Juicy's verbiage was like, you had the Evo Barb split and then the Magic Archer up high, and then there was a poison used on the river, and it looked like it was like maybe enough, but then that bandit sneaking in just kind of led the charge. It gets all the way to the center of the map, then starts tanking on top of the tower, and it was just those Magic Archers up high. They were also getting piercing shots all the way through. So I think Tatone was really feeling the pressure to get rid of them, and it just was all trouble there. Really great recognition by Faust to go, if I can just overwhelm on the right-hand side, I'm going to bait out this poison because he needs to deal with that Magic Archer. And then, yeah, the dual lane pressure, beautiful stuff. That deck is really, really great. We've seen it be really dominant here today a couple times, and I don't know, I had to try it out when we were off broadcast.
Well, speaking of pressure, the pressure only mounts as we now go down to our top 6. 1 golden ticket and 2 players on this list who can't get another golden ticket. So you got to imagine Samuel, Ta, Wallace, and Faust all starting to feel it tremendously right now as Wallace and Faust both stay alive in that lower bracket. Then the upper bracket, some bangers, and Mohamed Light versus Samuel Basoto coming up next. Juicy, it's going to be Andrew and I on this one. Your thoughts on this absolutely blistering matchup?
So, obviously, I picked Mohamed Light. I think he's the best player in the world, but you made a good call out with your Samuel Basoto pick. Earlier, when you talked about how Samuel Basoto, with the talent that he has and working hard, it literally gave me chills because you're absolutely right. This player is someone who, if he's working hard, that is just a scary thing. And overall, I would say that Mohamed Light's gameplay has not been up to what it usually is. It is not stopping him. Don't get me wrong, he's still winning almost every match. He got #1 in the ladder last season, even with the evolutions. But if there's one chance for a player to be able to dethrone him and take a W, it is right here, right now.
So here we go. Mohamed Light against Samuel, and of course the winner of this will take on either Mugi or Ta. So things getting tighter and tighter as we go on, and looks like, Andrew, we might be very close to, if not precisely, in a mirror match.
Yeah, Sam, happy about that early on. You know, it's always fun to get in a mirror matchup with decks that I'm sure both of them are absolutely insane with. I mean, this is one of the most popular decks in Clash Royale, especially at the highest level. The micro interactions are going to be on point, and I was just going to say the nados are going to be fascinating to see. So Mo nados up, Samuel already ready with the knight in hand, Mo with a perfect Magic Archer lineup to take the other Magic Archer off the board. And as of right now, Mo in the lead by just a hair, obviously, but still is able to get that chip damage, which really is what it comes down to in these mirror matches.
And that's going to be 2 shots from the Magic Archer. So you talk about chip, there we get it. And you see, for those of you who are watching at home who are not used to that placement, if you're new to this level of Clash Royale, there is more than one anti-NATO spot for the miners. And you can go to the safe spot on the outside corner, but that middle square, 1 tile out, is the other NATO safe spot if you're trying to predict them playing their NATO against you. So that's the placement Samuel just went for as we go into the final 90 of our opening stanza. It is so far the lead for Mo. Is there... I guess there's not a...
Well, it's also...
Go ahead, Andrew.
I was just going to say it's also a good spot just because in case they play a cycle card on top of your miner, right? If they play skeletons or an ice spirit, something like that, your miner's going to be able to take it off the board and then get back on tower, as opposed to, you know, miner goes to the #1 spot, skeletons surround immediately. So just like all these fun little things that you see people at the highest level starting to integrate into their gameplay. Once one person does it, they all do it.
Yeah, and this is interesting. We've seen a couple opportunities for Sam to get a King Tower activation here, and he hasn't played a Tornado, which makes me wonder if for some reason NATO's not in this deck, if he's running something else, but that would be a bit surprising.
Yeah, I mean, it really should be. The only other time you'll see Poison is if it's Bats instead of the Magic Archer, but obviously we see the Magic Archer, and I think you and I have talked about this. I think we've all talked about this in the past, is running Magic Archer in this deck without NATO just doesn't make any sense. You guys can kind of see right there that miner goes to the outside, take care of one of the Spear Goblins, then gets on top of the tower.
Wall breakers getting a little bit there. And see, again, look, there's a, and there they, oh wow, what a King Tower activation to go through that bomb tower. I think that maybe the Knight nudged the Magic Archer up a hair. I would need to see that on a replay. That was fascinating.
Yeah, I'm actually watching it, and that's exactly what happened. The Knight is played behind the Magic Archer, pushes it up a tile, and then it gets the King Tower activation. So a little fun new interaction there. If you guys ever see a Magic Archer played to the inside and then a unit behind it, you know, not sure how often that'll happen, but
well,
here we go. Evo Knight on top of that miner. Great catch there, because with that Evo Knight tanking, that could have been nothing but trouble.
Wall breakers force out the tornado. Magic Archer gets distracted by the Spear Goblins, and well defended there by Mohamed Light. You see the opportunistic plays from Sam, falling just a hair short. 1884 to 2004, as we are almost a triple elixir. The NATO playing big roles here for Mo.
Yeah, that was a perfect NATO. 1906 to 1884. Just 22 HP separating these two, and that's why, as important as it was early on, right? It was only just a handful of HP, but Mohamed Light was in the lead, does get that Magic Archer shot in, and that's exactly what Mo does. That one piercing shot, now in the lead by about 300. Log comes in. Should be able to clean everything up here, but now a couple shots from Samwell comes through, and he should be able to get another one on top of that Spear Goblin.
I was about to say here, there's no way there's not a NATO in here, so why isn't he playing it? And I'm wondering, and my question was he slow playing Mo? Was he playing all this time just to let Mo think that Sam went for a weird alternative variation, a weird snipe play of some sort? And I think that's what Sam did here. I'll have to reach out and find out this afterwards, because if that's the case, if this was a slow play, we might have seen some of the best mind games in the history of Clash Royale League.
I just feel like there's no way, if you're Mohamed Light, to ever think that there wouldn't be a NATO in this deck. I mean, I could be wrong, but there's no way. There's just no way, because he would have poisoned earlier then, or used a big spell. I think Sam was just waiting for his correct moment, and he ends up beating Mo with the Remy Ellie mirror match, as we all like to call it.
I just don't know what inspired Sam to not play the NATO for over 4 minutes of gameplay, to not activate King Tower. Like, this is one of those ones where I'd love to sit down with both of them and just talk through the match piece by piece. That was fascinating.
Game number 2 coming your way. Mohamed Light down 1. Samwell putting in some great work in game number 1's mirror match.
And here we go. Sam looking like bridge spam, but no, he already played maybe some other variation. Doesn't have Magic Archer NATO. I don't even know. I don't know what to think with Sam anymore. The guy's doing some great Clash Royale.
So Sam looking like he could be, just gonna say, going to some version of bridge spam with the heal spirit in there, but Goblin Cage, first time we're seeing him today.
And Pigs right into Valk's Snowball. Still get some good damage for Sam in this one.
Yeah, I would definitely be a little frustrated if I was Sam. We haven't seen the Valk Snowball combo at all today. And, you know, kind of nice to have here if you're playing against Piggies. So Mo going to, I mean, it looks like the classic delivery as well.
Well, you know, it's Sam.
That would just be crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and Sam is one of the few people who's playing a lot of Pigs right now. So, you know, you talk about Mo and Jeba's cooking stuff up there in the kitchen. Sam's one of those guys who is playing Pigs, so this deck obviously has lots of variability and lots of value out of Mo, and it covers Pigs very nicely. Great pick here.
Yeah, and Mo's going to have an interesting time getting that Hog Rider through with the barbs, not having a big spell to get on top of those barbs. Goblin Cage is there as well.
I think the big question here is going to be the flying machine, right? Is Mo's plan to just try to kite it, get it in range, use some snowball to reset it? Obviously, he's going to take some moments like this, where he just takes these unfortunate extra shots, having no really excellent option, especially when you talk about the offensive side of the board.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that you can do is kind of place that Archer Queen right on top of that flying machine, but I think we're going to see a lot more of this, where you want the AQ to kind of help with the other lane defending. So we'll see how Mohamed Light wants to deal with the flying machines as he's trying to create some pressure here as Sam's just got an ocean of blue on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Mo needs to create a little bit of pressure.
And just easily handles the push on the right-hand side, does Sam. And the flying machine does sneak up into tower range, but it'll trade fairly well with the Valk, who might get one as Sam recognizes that and sets up his flying machine just to guarantee that's not a problem. This will be a hog shot here. No. Cage played. And as we go into sudden death overtime, this is just about as tight as it can be with around 40 HP, now a bit different, separating that right-hand lane.
Yeah, and that's really tough because you see that Mo spent so much elixir there just to get no damage. And Sam only spent elixir on troops that would be on the board. Now we see that brawler on the tower. Dude, that's game right there. That's a spell cycle game. He's got evoed barbs on the left-hand side, flying machine on the right. Mohamed Light sits back, and he is going to the lower bracket. Samuel Basoto stays alive, and Rich with the saucy pick ends up taking the dub.
You know what? I said this top of the show. Sam practicing hard is a very scary. He's world class when he's not grinding his hardest. So you add in really grinding, really pushing, having a bit of a chip on his shoulder maybe, that gets so scary for everyone. And you know, now that we get to the latter chunk of our regular season and the push towards getting our world finalists, you start to ask the most important question. Who are the biggest threats to Mohamed Light? And there are the obvious answers like Mugi. A pretty decent answer like Pedro, who's kind of been there up with him both in ranked and in our competitive play here.
Rich,
but Sam
I'm sorry. I got to cut you off. I'm sorry. Did he just get a golden ticket? Didn't he at least get third? No, because I guess Mugi and Mo have to stay alive, but he's guaranteed third place.
Well, he's guaranteed third place. So not quite, because that would only be if he's in the top three with Mugi and Mo, which is still completely possible that could happen.
Because Mugi's still in the upper bracket and Mo's now in the bottom bracket.
Exactly.
So Sam is in a very good spot. I'm sorry to cut you off. I got a little excited there.
Yeah, dude, we're all waiting for that one. We're all super excited for that one, and no one more excited for that than Sam. Right now, the dream scenario for Sam is he makes it to the winner's bracket, and he waits and sees if Mugi or Mo end up being his opponent, right? Because then he has nothing to worry about. At that point, he's got a golden ticket locked up. Either way, Sam is adding a bunch of points to himself. He's already in the top 7. He's guaranteeing himself at least 50, maybe 65 points overall. So a nice jump up the leaderboards. And of course, the form he's in is phenomenal. He just made a statement. He's one of the most dangerous contenders for our World Championship this year.
So this was something that I was actually thinking of talking about before, because we saw Mohamed Light and Mugi get in a mirror matchup with the same decks prior months, and then Juicy's talking here in the chat about not playing the NATO to defend, because Mohamed Light used the bait of the NATO before to end up beating Mugi. I'm wondering if Samuel Basoto goes, I'm going to keep giving you opportunities to use the NATO, and you're going to use the NATO, whereas Samuel on the other side of it didn't ever use it defensively. He only used it offensively, and he just defended the way that I think you're supposed to in that mirror match. When Mo gave that interview against Mugi, he specifically talked about baiting out the NATO so that he could take the tower, and Juicy, I think, is kind of reinforcing that idea here in this matchup in game number 1. Either way, if you like playing this deck, if you like these players, you should go back and you should watch it. Going on to game number 2. Wow, it's kind of crazy that he used the same trick that Mo used against Mugi. I love this game. Going on to game number 2. This, Rich, is what you were talking about. You said it very early. How do you deal with the flying machine? Well, you don't really. And then what I was thinking about is, how does that hog get to tower with the barbs and the goblin cage? Well, it doesn't really. Mohamed Light ends up getting 2-0'd here by Samuel Basoto, and we are on to our next upper bracket matchup. Mohamed Light goes down below, which is just one of those things that it doesn't really matter that much. We've seen him play through the lower bracket many times before, including at World Finals.
Yeah, that's definitely his calling card. In fact, him winning in the first round of a bracket is almost wrong, right? He's supposed to lose the first round and then go beat everybody. That's how you build the legend of Mohamed Light. But right now, the legend of Samuel Basoto starting to grow. Juicy, Sam has been a world-class competitor for a very, very long time. But is it possible that in 2023, we could see the best version of Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is exactly what we're seeing right now. The deck picks, they're on point. The gameplay, perfect. Molite even making a couple mistakes there versus Sam, missing that kite on that Goblin Brawl at the end. I mean, I just love to see him playing the best that he can be. I cannot wait to see him at World Finals because I know he's going to get this golden ticket this monthly finals.
Whoa.
I feel like when you see, oh, wow, love that call out.
Right? Go ahead, Andrew. I just had to take him up with Juicy just called the golden ticket right there.
I was just going to say, when you watch Mohamed Light play, there's only a handful of people in the world where it feels like he is up against the wall, right? Or they're like right at his level. And I'd say Lucas and Samuel and Mugi are probably those three players that always can give Mo a run for his money. And we just saw it there. I mean, absolutely beautiful stuff from Sam. You said it, Juice, from the gameplay to the deck picks. And that's why he's up in our upper final. Samuel at worst can get third place now with where he's at, but if Mo and Mugi stay alive, he is so close to getting that golden ticket, and this next matchup is a big part of that. Can Mugi beat Ta and give us a Mugi Samuel Basoto matchup? This is going to be a very exciting closeout to our day, which really sets up a crazy Sunday.
This is actually really crazy to think about, that if Mohamed Light wins and if Mugi beats Ta and then Mo beats Faust, I think that gives Sam the golden ticket already. So this is just this is a great spot for Samuel Basoto to be in. And when we talk about our next matchup here, it's not just Mugi doesn't have as much to play for other than some extra cash. It's Ta who has a ton to play for. And I think that's one of the reasons, Andrew, why you and I are both picking Mugi here. Not only is he one of the all-time greats in the world, but the pressure difference between him and Ta has got to be significant.
Yeah, two good picks from you early on with Ta and Samuel there. Yeah, as we go into this match 8, it's just one of those things where Ta looked really exceptional in his first round matchup. Mugi looked like Mugi in 2021. He calm, collected, that RG push at the end. I mean, the hair is on point. What more do you want? He is in the absolute best spot to be in. Golden ticket in hand, playing for cash, and played absolutely perfect early on. But Ta was like a man possessed when he won that game. And I love to see that passion from these players that I feel like Ta feels like he probably still has so much to prove in a game where he's already proven a lot.
Well, getting themselves ready for this one, and it's a big one here. Ta knows that if he loses in this matchup, his journey to a golden ticket berth gets much more difficult and potentially would put him through Mohamed Light. Of course, that's not guaranteed at all at this stage, but right now, a lot of nerves you can see on the face of Ta.
All right, we'll say goodbye to Rich as Juicy and I are on the cast here for this battle in Japan. Mugi top of your screen, Ta at the bottom. Early damage in from those wall breakers, but that means that 2 elixir is already out, so you can't spend more behind this knight.
Knight's gonna do a decent job in the ops lane, gonna get some solid damage, but we're seeing a replay of a matchup we've already seen today. We have Lava Loon versus the Miner, the wall breakers, the Magic Archer. It's gonna be very difficult for Ta to defend something like this.
And that fireball should be able to hit both the Magic Archer and the bomb tower. It does, and just like that, Inferno Dragon on the tower. This is already going to be towered down, and 2 elixir into nothing with those goblins. And this is just a really tough pull, man. I mean, I don't know if running this deck in game number 1 is the way to go after watching this weekend, Juicy, just because there's been so much lava play that you basically find yourself in an unwinnable matchup.
Yeah, and if you are going to go for something, I feel like you have to go for the Fireball or Poison variation to give yourself a chance versus this Lava deck. Those Skelly Dragons, I don't talk about it enough, but those Skelly Dragons are also so key in this matchup. They get so much value, and if you don't have a big spell for them, they are going to wipe out everything.
Yeah, Skeleton Dragons, honestly really popular. You see them showing up in some Mortar decks now. The amount of, that little split that they got made it so that they're just a little harder to deal with. And yeah, like you said, if you don't have a big spell, Skeleton Dragons feel like one of the cards you can kind of neglect or ignore. But really, when they're behind that lava, they clean up so much and put in good damage. Ta in a very uphill battle here. 1044 now trying to put in some damage on this right hand side. Nice surround there with the goblins, take care of that Magic Archer, and now the Miner tanking for the Evo Knight, not the other way around.
Evo Knight is there, but the Evo Barbs are going to drop right here and take that Knight out. And now that's just adding more to this counter push. That's kind of like what Lava with the Evo Barbs is all about. If you have the Evo Barbs in your hand, ready for a defense, when you go for the Lava in the back, that will just add more to the push. As we can see here, that bomb tower going completely down. Arrows dropping those spear goblins, and there's no air defense left here. I mean, he gets the magic archer down, that'll barely keep this tower alive, but Ta hasn't taken a single tower yet.
Yeah, I mean, he just had to spend so much defensively. Fireball for the first magic archer, spears for the, arrows for the spear goblins. Then the second magic archer comes down, but still ends up taking some damage there. So Ta really gonna, he's gonna keep trying. He's got 15 seconds to do it, but being able to just drop units on top of the cards behind the knight make it so that those pushes on the left-hand side are a lot less threatening. Two towers that have taken a lot of damage, one that has fallen. Ta loses game number 1 with this matchup that we've seen a handful of times today that I don't think anyone has played through today on broadcast. Can it be done? Absolutely, but not here at this level.
And I talk about a lot about how Mugi's probably his kryptonite is, or his flaw is not getting good matchups a lot of the time. But when he does get good matchups like that, it's an absolute slaughter. He's playing perfectly here as well. You'd love to see it. Ta's going to have to make something happen here in game 2 if he wants to force to game 3.
So Mugi opting to not go to his comfort in Royal Giant, saving it maybe for game 3 if he wants. Goes right back to the good old Remy Ellie deck, which now he knows in game number 1 with what his opponents ran that he doesn't have to deal with at least some of those cards. The spears and the magic archer.
Absolutely. Looks like Ta actually has the Royal Giant here. Andrew, talk to me about the idea in Clash Royale of like how if you're really good with one deck, like Mugi is with Royal Giant, how that influences how you're able to play against it.
I mean, I feel like when you know a deck inside and out, you really know all the best ways that that deck is going to, like, you know all the best ways that they want to capitalize, and you know the most frustrating things that are going to happen, right? So already with that first push, he goes, okay, so I need a spell to probably deal with that bomb tower, at least I need to get my barrel on top of it, and then you think about those spear goblins, because the spear goblins are always going to be annoying whether you're running regular or evoed RG. So I just think when you know a deck inside and out, when you're playing your comfort, when you go up against it, you just know everything about how it works and how it doesn't work. And I mean, not always can you exploit that, but usually it makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely. Here comes a Phoenix to the bridge here, trying to snipe out this magic archer. Maybe tank for this RG even. Lightning a drop on the offense. NATO pulls back. This is a great push. Now the RG's tanking for the Phoenix. Wallbreaker is going to help distract that a bit. Bomb tower defends pretty well. Great plays from both players, but a solid defense from Mugi. Gonna be coming out on top a little bit here damage-wise. Ta up a little bit of elixir.
So now it feels like if you're Ta, you're like, all right, I need to use this Royal Ghost to get on top of those spear goblins. Then with your Mugi, you're like, now what do I need to drop in front of those spears to make sure that they're defended? Because they are kind of the X factor, at least in defending for Mugi, just because they're the only thing that Ta can't get to. And then you couple that with the NATO, the bomb tower, and the log, and those RG connections become much more difficult.
Great plays by Ta here, predicting that magic archer every time. I love this. And he might be back to an RG here. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Evo RG, bridge, ops lane. This is the dual lane pressure that you're looking for if you're an RG player. And Mugi's only at 4 elixir right now. This Evo RG is locked on tower. He does push it back, but the lightning's going to drop. Take that out. NATO is back in cycle. But overall, Ta going to be up some nice damage here.
Yeah, I mean, Mugi had all the responses kind of ready to go, but it was after damage came from each little extra layer that Ta added to the push. So 24-38 now, the lowest tower on the board. Mugi still very, very close. I mean, just needs one wall breaker connection to even things up.
Great pre-log there. If the pre-log is quick enough, you can actually stun the ghost enough there to get the wall breakers to hit. He wasn't able to make that happen in time, though. Mine are going to drop on the defense to defend this ghost. But Ta resetting with this Evo RG in back. Next time he plays it, the Evo is going to be on the board. So maybe he can try and recreate what he did in that last push and get some damage in.
Really nice protection there of the magic archer with the wall breakers and then the log, making it so that fisherman was not a factor. So Royal Ghost has to come down on top of it. And yeah, that pre-log is always a good call, right? Because it's going to hit either the Skellies, it's going to hit the Royal Ghost, or it's going to hit that E-Spirit. So really the only thing that Mugi has to worry about is, you know, the barrel coming out like we just saw there. So the log's still going to get some chip damage and making Ta pick and choose his way he wants to defend. It's the final matchup here of the day. Game number 1 in hand of Mugi, our former world champion. Ta trying to stay up in that upper bracket, see who faces off against Basoto.
All these wall breakers in the left here to get some damage and also damage the RG a little bit. But now we're heading into triple elixir. There's gonna be another RG dropped here pretty soon. No, he's focusing on the Evo RG breakthrough with this lightning. Good NATO back though, a log to make sure. Maybe that log was an overcommitment. Overall, Ta is up a little bit of damage here, and he also has the lightning as a big spell. Mugi needs to make some plays happen to get some damage here with these wall breakers.
Mugi trying to get that NATO in. Royal Ghost should provide a shot, so if Phoenix has to come down, Miner getting tanked for a little bit there, and now the lead in Mugi's favor. 18-56, 15-41 to 21-21. Todd does get a shot in on the left. Needs shots, though, here on the right. NATO, or excuse me, Lightning on top of the Magic Archer and Bomb Tower. Now the NATO comes down.
Double Ghost in the opposite lane. Will this Evo RG get a hit? Yes, it does. Here comes the RG in the left once again. But Mugi's up so much damage right now. As long as he's able to defend this RG on the left, he should win the game. Lightning does drop. NATO pulls back. Miner gets enough chip, and that's going to be GG's. Mugi going to take game 2 here. Well played. Oh, it was great. It was great. GG's.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that question that you went back to early on really kind of came into practice as we watched that match unfold. Mugi knew exactly when that second RG was always going to come down. He always had a bomb tower ready, or a log, or that NATO. The Spear Goblins were always cycled early on to get a little bit of chip and bait something out so that they were available to come back down for their RG pushes. Those Spear Goblins put in so much work over and over again defending. And then with everything else, it was just about perfect defenses from Mugi over and over again.
Yeah, it's a great call on the Spear Gobs. Once again, we're seeing how the bar barrel kind of falls short. Literally, and be able to take out those range units like Musketeer and Spear Gobs and stuff like that. I honestly would love to see Rage being used more in decks like this, especially when you pair it with the Fireball. The Rage does such a good job with the Evo RG as well, not only increasing that hit speed, but also increasing the knockback speed of the evolution.
So game number 1, really tough matchup. You know, we've seen this before. We talked about it a lot today. You know, Ta honestly did a decent job. He got great damage in on both sides, but it's just really an uphill battle. And then we went to game number 2, you know, really good gameplay from both of these guys. And it felt like it really was coming down to the wire, and then that double wall breaker connection really opened things up, and you kind of saw Ta really finding and falling into a groove, keeping up good pressure on both sides and having so many responses to deal with that Royal Giant. And with what you're talking about early, asking me about when you're playing against your comfort, it just felt like Mugi knew exactly the way to pressure that was frustrating for the ground units that were available for Ta, and then knowing exactly how to defend the most efficient way against that RG. And we never saw one of those brilliant sequences where we get from Mugi where it's like RG comes down and then a perfectly timed spell and then another perfectly dropped bar barrel, you know, and then a perfect E-Spirit. It just didn't feel exactly that way, and I think a big part of it is more about how Mugi made that difficult than about Ta's comfort with that deck. Juicy, talk me through these matchups.
Game 1, I mean, we talked about it a million times. Fireball for the Magic Archer, arrows for the Spear Gobs. You don't have air defense after that. Lava takes the easy dub. In the game 2, it was fairly evenly matched overall. Mugi definitely has a slight matchup advantage here, I would say, though, just because the log, the NATO, the bomb tower having triple RG counters there. And you called it out. The really game-changing moment there was that wall breaker double connection left inside. But you guys might be wondering, how did he get that minor wall? How did he get that double wall breaker connection? The barbell came out on the wall breakers. It damaged it enough, but that miner was placed in a way to distract both Princess Towers on both lanes. That was the game-winning play by Mugi. I feel like we didn't get enough love. Well played there, taking a 2-0 sweep versus Ta.
Yeah, so our world champion, at least in Mugi, staying strong. Mohamed Light down below. Rich, we are seeing, honestly, 3 of the names that you really expect to be here. Actually, maybe 4, right? In Faust 2, when you talk about these guys that are still hanging on. A couple others there in the, I guess, you know, they're just like a little bit behind. It felt like this was a bit of a different level when you talk about Ta playing against Mugi, but at least in those top 3, in Sam, Ta, and Mo, how you feeling at the end of our Saturday?
Pretty phenomenal end of our Saturday. And as we look at the bracket, we have one of the most interesting situations possible, right? Because you have Mugi and Samuel Basoto in our upper bracket finals. And Sam, of course, winning to the grand final could end up being the thing he does to get his golden ticket and winning the golden ticket overall. But right now, the lower bracket becomes really interesting. And Sam's golden ticket fate might be decided before he even picks up his phone. Because we have Ta versus Wallace in one lower bracket final, which is really big for both these players, especially Ta on points. But then Mo versus Faust. If Mo wins round 2 and wins the lower bracket semifinals, Sam will get a golden ticket without playing a single second of Clash Royale tomorrow. So that's probably the biggest storyline of tomorrow. Will Mohamed Light gift someone a golden ticket for the 5th time this year?
I mean, with the way that Sam's playing, it feels like he might be the second person this year to steal a golden ticket from Mo, and I guess the only person this year to steal a golden ticket from Mo while he was in the competition, right? Last month, Arden Toas played exceptionally well, but he didn't have to worry about the mountain that is Mohamed Light. Samuel Basoto just gave him a 2-0 loss here in the upper bracket, and now, like you said, Rich, doesn't even have to play a second of Clash Royale tomorrow to just qualify for World Finals. So all I know is I'm excited to see what we have. We have 6 of the best players in the world. I do feel like I just said, Ta and Wallace are just a step behind. Ta, Wallace, and Faust are just a step behind everyone else. Faust, I give the edge because of points, but at least in those top 3, this could be a crazy, crazy thing where Samuel doesn't even have to play to get that golden ticket.
It's going to be a whole lot of fun to watch. And today, of course, was a lot of fun to watch as well. Let's take a look at our play of the day, because we had a bunch of great ones. And here we go, Adriel versus Wallace. And Juicy, this was one of our top moments overall, as Wallace was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, look at this Evo Knight, ladies and gentlemen. It's just tanking forever. It takes out the entire Fisherman by himself with the double wall break connection, and then immediately retargets the tower somehow, some way, making this absolutely disgusting comeback. I know I said again, disgusting, but what else can I say? That was beautiful plays there. I mean, look at my reaction.
Yeah, this was great. And yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
I was going to say, the defense is in the pocket from Adriel. I mean, he takes so much damage here from that very first Royal Giant, 501, and that's just where the number stands. He's ready to go every single time, and Wallace is the tilt of his head with that double wall breaker connection. I've been there before. You play some defense, you're playing the game that you've played for years, for thousands of hours, and you're just like, how on earth did that not defend the way that it's supposed to? And then the whole time, the miner's just living in the back. He's just hanging out back there, chipping away on the tower. Just incredible stuff. The poise, Rich, you said it earlier, he just ice in his veins, cold-blooded. That was one of the most impressive finishes I've ever seen.
It was a tremendous finish. Of course, Wallace coming out on top in the end. Adriel getting himself some points. Either way, a lot of fun to watch. Ice in his veins, and we got some frosty ones for you tomorrow. Juicy, final thoughts on today as we lead into our top 6.
I mean, you guys nailed it on the head when you talked about how Samuel is in a really good spot. All he has to do is watch Mo and say, Mo, please just do what you do. Win this loser's bracket, and he gets a ticket. I think that's the number one thing to look forward to tomorrow.
Well, I'm in the same boat. Call Mo and butter him up if you're Samuel Basoto, Rich. You can have some of my monthly money. Do whatever you need. Just win those next couple matches.
Well, you can see all of that right here tomorrow. If you haven't yet on YouTube, go ahead, hit subscribe, ring the bell. Make sure you get notified. We are back here same time, same place tomorrow to watch the grand final of this August monthly competition. Will Sam get that golden ticket, or will we be thrown into absolute chaos? Find out tomorrow. For Andrew Guy, Juicy J, everyone here at our production, I'm Rich Slayton. We'll see you back here mañana for the conclusion of our August monthly final. But the fact that he has to get so much damage so fast because he gave up all that damage just makes that prospect completely impossible. And you see him have to overspend, just as you called it. Mohamed Light, easy does it.
Monk ability needs to pop here, but he doesn't play it. Monk ability would have got some chip, but it doesn't matter. Double Phoenix, RG, Bush is coming down the lane, and what do I say? Samuel gonna take this dub here because of the aggression, over-aggression in this RG mirror matchup. Minor balloon off lane. Hunter gonna be able to one-shot and two-shot that balloon. Evil Bar.
Wow, wow.
Great.
And look at that. Titan can't believe it. Moogie just shreds right through that one.
He has got a big pileup coming his way. And Rich, you might have just evened things up in that predictions board.
Wow.
Ta, doing it.
Absolutely. Wow. You see the celebration there from Ta. He knows.
Yes.
He knows. He crushed that one.
And Sam only spent elixir on troops that would be on the board.
Wow.
Now we see that brawler on
Wow.
the tower. Dude, that's game. Flying Machine on the right, Mohamed Light sits back, and he's going to the lower bracket. Samuel Basoto stays alive.
Moogie's up so much damage right now. As long as he's able to defend this, RG on the left, he should win the game. Lightning does drop.
Nato.
Nato pulls back. Miner gets enough chip, and that's going to be GG's Moogie.